St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Swung on, hit a ton, deep left field. This ball gone. Angel Martinez has hit his second home run. And the Guardians have struck here in the first and have a 1-0 lead. Bouncing ball in the hole. It gets through into right field. That'll score Ramirez. Here comes Hoskins. He'll score as well. Swung on and driven to deep left. Away, back and gone. Brian Rocchio with a no doubt about it. 2-run blast to left.
So that's what it sounded like at Busch Stadium last night. Sounded like a lot of balls going over the wall. Not for the Cardinals.
I got a feeling we're going to be playing a lot of the opposition's calls this year.
You know
Guardians
what?
TV there.
This might be a good time for us to allow an opportunity to rescind some of our optimism that we had early on, right? Like you and I, we were like, we thought they were going to be closer to a 100-loss team. They're not going to be that bad. They're going to be fine. Do we want to back that up a little bit, or?
I'm not thinking 100 losses, but I am willing to say
90?
not the 80 to 85 wins that BK convinced me of after, I don't know, a series.
BK he's like a siren. He just finds a way to pull us in every time we don't want to, and it just kills
tone,
us.
Right?
It's got to be the tone.
I try to defend my takes, and I just get that tone, and then I kind of shrivel
we need to hold our ground from now
Where's
on,
that
T-Bone.
squirt bottle?
Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. No BK again today here on BK and Ferrario. He'll be back tomorrow, and the Cardinals lost last night 9-3. That's what it sounded like on the Guardians broadcast as they hit 2 home runs in that baseball game. Matthew Liberatore, 5 innings of work, 6 hits, 4 earned runs, gave up a bomb, had 3 walks and 2 strikeouts. Justin Brule, who is one of the few left-handers left, also gave up a home run, went 1 inning of work, 2 earned runs, and then Graceffo had a pretty decent inning, and then Ryan Fernandez kind of still Ryan Fernandez. So not a good night overall for this Cardinals team, T-Bone. And outside of JoJo Romero and Riley O'Brien, there's not one person in that bullpen I think that anybody can trust right now. And this pitching staff for the Cardinals, I think we were a little bit more optimistic with early on, to where it's like, you know what, they'll at least be competitive with Dustin May having a rebound season, with Michael McGreevy looking like he was going to be a Bulldog this year, Matthew Liberatore, who started off really well, and you're going to feel comfortable. Not great, but you're going to feel comfortable with these guys. I don't think that's the case at all. And my intrusive thoughts are now seeping into where this pitching staff just might be bad all season long, and there's no end in sight, because the trickle-down effect with this, as you saw last night, if your rotation's not great, your bullpen's going to have to be used really quick, which we're talking by the 6th inning, your bullpen's coming in, and if your bullpen gets destroyed, you're going to start losing arms, and they're going to drop like flies.
Yeah, watching the rotation and seeing what the bullpen has looked like, outside of JoJo and O'Brien, and, I'll give credit. I think Graceffo's looked okay. Soriano's intriguing. So they've got some pieces down there, but man, the back end, the underbelly of that pen, whew, boy, man, they can't get guys out. And you saw that again last night. And I know Fernandez was charged for 0 earned runs, but don't get me started on the official scores of where if it's an error on the pitcher, he doesn't get charged an earned run. That doesn't seem to make sense to me when we charge them for earned runs when they're pitching, but I digress.
Someone's angry.
It's one of those things with official scoring, which I love, that really eggs me on. But I'm with you. I see this pitching staff and go, man, they don't have answers that are coming anywhere anytime soon, right? Like when you look at the rotation, I'll start there. Libby, I thought, would be better than this through 4 games, and I know his stuff has been grading a little better based on the models through the first 4 starts. I'm just not seeing it with the eye test, right? He's walking more guys than he did last year through his first 4 starts. The strikeouts are cut in half from where it was through his first 4 starts last year when he transitioned. Leahy has not been great in his transition. Dustin May's not been very good. McGreevy's stuff's not there. And then you add into the fact that the bullpen, they've been churning through the bullpen, and they're churning, and we're not making butter right now. We're not making anything, really.
What do you churn if you don't churn butter?
I don't know what it would make.
Probably oil.
There's no answers for the underbelly of the pen. Like, I was all for trying Fernandez. Bradford and I talked about it yesterday on air, along with you, of, hey, it's time for Swanson to go down. Well, they didn't send Swanson down. They bring up Fernandez. I go, he looks the same. I know it's only one game. It's a little unfair to criticize him for that, but he looks a lot like he did last year. They just don't have answers. So, yeah, I think their pitching is going to be a problem, if not the whole year, at least for half the year. And the reason I say I'll give them a caveat on an out potentially around, like, the All-Star break, maybe by then you start to see some guys like Gastelum, who's in the minor leagues, who they like as a bullpen arm that's got a filthy changeup. Maybe you start to see Quinn Matthews or Bryson Motts potentially at the big league level in the rotation. But right now, it's ugly.
I should correct myself. I do trust Gordon Graceffo. I mean, that's a guy I feel comfortable with when he comes into games. I mean, he comes into games not in a high-leverage spot, but he does come into games right after the starter, and he's able to give them a couple of competitive innings. So that's a really good place to be. This is a rebuild, though. Like, I have to always remind myself when games are like that. I'm watching it up in the press box last night for the Blues game, and, it's 6-1, it's 7-1, and I'm like, oh, God. But then it's like, it's a rebuild. This is what happens. And you say it all the time, T-Bone. Bullpens are fickle. You can have one season where 5 guys are terrible, and then the next season 5 guys are great. Like, the bullpen is the last piece of the puzzle when it comes to a competitive team. So you have to, keep reminding yourself, it doesn't matter. The bullpen's bad. That's fine. Maybe that's a good thing for the Cardinals, because as great as it is where you get some answers on certain pieces, we'll talk about Jordan Walker in a bit, but hey, if you're getting good outcomes on that front, but you're also losing baseball games, man, that's kind of a win-win right now.
It's a rebuild, yes, but by the same token, let's go back down the same well. From where are you going to be getting those innings? Because we haven't even hit the heaviest portion, the real stretch of crazy game after game after game action. That's coming, as we said yesterday, April the 24th through May the 17th. You have a grand total of 1 day off therein. And it's all a trickle-down effect, because you talk about the lack of starters, guys, being able to go even into the 5th, 6th inning in these contests. And obviously, you're putting that much more of a burden then on a relief core, the likes of which you simply don't have a lot of high leverage options out there. So even more sobering to me, on Friday night, did you see something that was ironed out, hopefully by Dustin May, the presumptive number 1 for the first half of your season? Yeah, you'd like to think so. But how about tonight's starter, Michael McGreevy? How about trying to maintain or sustain surface level numbers so far this season that have been really good? 2.16 ERA. He's got a victory. He's looking for number 2 tonight against Cleveland. But beneath the hood, Tanner, you know as well as I do, a lot of those numbers, the advanced figures and whatnot, don't exactly bode well for him being able to continue what he has done so far. So that paints an even more sobering picture when the guy who was supposed to lead your group, the opening day starter in Matthew Liberatore, we're also seeing less in the way of results from him.
From the 319, if the Cards would have just added some veteran bullpen arms to help the back end, I think they could steal a few more wins.
Well, that's a problem. We don't want to steal wins.
Well, true, but also, maybe, but one, do those veteran bullpen arms want to come pitch here? Because typically those guys are ones that would like to be a part of a winning mindset, and I don't know how many guys were available free agency that fell into the right price range that the Cardinals were willing to go throw at these guys, like Stanek that was signed, Justin Brule that was brought in, George Soriano that was brought in. Those are the guys that join teams in a rebuild. Not the guys that are added veterans like who was it last year that they, why am I blanking on this? Maton, yeah, or in the past, Pat Neshek when they brought him in. Kittredge, yeah.
I nearly said Kitzinger, and I was like, that's wrong.
Those were trades, but I just don't think the Cardinals were searching for those guys.
And you're not going to be able to bring in a lot of veteran bullpen arms unless they're the Stanek type during a rebuild. And the reason I say that about the Stanek type is Stanek didn't have a good year. He's looking for a bounce-back opportunity. No contending team was going to give it to him. The way a contending team will give it to him is by trading for him at the deadline if he's good. So it doesn't matter, because in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't look like they're going to get any answers, which is kind of what I thought coming into the year. Remember, I brought this up, and then BK did yell at me saying, well, what are we watching the season for? And I said, well, it's for the offense, right? They don't have many guys that look like profile to be in their rotation in the long run. Leahy, it's still too early to determine, but right now his stuff was playing up better in the bullpen. Liberatore doesn't look like he's a guy that you plan for in a rotation long term. What I mean by that is he's not a guy that, when he gets up here, he pitches well and you say, all right, that guy's definitely in our rotation for the next 5 years. Libby looks like, all right, he's in our rotation until it becomes too expensive in the ARP system, and we're not going to pay a number 4, number 5 starter, $10 million if we think we've got upgrades in our minor league system.
In all reality, in a hypothetical world, I know I just said two very different things. In a hypothetical world, if Leahy and Palante were still bullpen arms, would this team be in a little bit of a different spot?
If Leahy and Palante were bullpen arms?
Now, understanding they'd have to fill the rotation spots with something, but those guys in your bullpen.
Leahy was your fixture last season.
Okay, Leahy was what you hoped Swanson was.
Yeah.
Palante, no, but is Palante beneficial for an inning versus 5?
It'd be like Leahy taking an inning that was like Soriano's, for example, right? You probably don't have Soriano. You've got Leahy back there. It doesn't mean a whole lot. And in fact, there's a chance they could be even worse because I don't know what they would do in that rotation.
In the rotation spot,
It was worth the experiment, right?
100%.
And it's not done on the experiment on Leahy. It's just in the first 3 starts, the returns are not very good because he's not missing bats. He's got walk issues, and his velo dips after the first inning, which I think is a guy trying to figure out how to become a starter. And it made sense to do it because he throws like 6 different pitches, which is what you want from a guy from moving from the bullpen to the starters onto the mound. I just threw 3 starts. I'm like, it's early. But my first conclusion through 3 starts is I don't know that he's a starter long term, and I think that's fine, right? You're in a rebuild. Why? Because your pitching completely failed and dried up. So it's okay to be looking at this season going, we're not going to get many answers because their best answers for the rotation in the long term are all down in the minor leagues.
Yeah, speaking of swing and miss stuff, let's talk a little bit about Matthew Liberatore because, T-Bone, you're noticing more and more, which I think everyone is. He just doesn't have the swing and miss. Like, Matthew Liberatore, you put some numbers together on this one. So far this year, 7th percentile in whiff percentage at 16%. Last year, he was at 20%. Last night, he had 9 swings and misses, 13 hard hit balls with 2 strikeouts. That's like the common theme with this rotation right now, which, again, keep the rebuild in mind, what you just said. This isn't the rotation that you're looking at. It's the guys that are in the minor league system. There's just no swing and miss in this rotation. I mean, I thought Dustin May would have it. He has not had it. Michael McGreevy absolutely doesn't have it, nor does Palante or Leahy. So, like, the 2 outs that I thought the swing and miss was going to come from was Matthew Liberatore and Dustin May. And if you're seeing that Libby doesn't have it, I mean, I don't know what the selling point is for that rotation if you don't got the swing and miss.
Yeah, it's just going to be a transition rotation is what it is for at least this year, and we'll see what it looks like the next couple of years. Yeah, the one that has surprised me is the lack of strikeout stuff so far from Libby. And not like I was expecting him to be, like an ace that goes out there and does like Chris Sale stuff all the time. But I thought it would tick up still a little bit. And I thought, especially because remember last year he kind of fell apart in the second half. I thought it was because, his velo is not there.
I thought exhaustion.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Like you're finally seeing that workload of a starter for a full 162 for the first time catch up to him after a year in the pen. And he looks like he did in the second half, except for like his velo's up. His velo is sustaining, which is good, but he's not as effective. And I wonder if it's the book is out on him. Like I went back and looked at his first 4 starts from last year when he transitioned. And in those 4 starts last year, he covered 25 innings, had a 3.6 ERA, a 1.98 FIP, 2 walks to 24 strikeouts. Remember last year when he first got into the rotation, and he sustained this for most of the year, it was, man, this guy is in the zone a lot. He's getting ahead of hitters quickly, and he's quick and efficient. That's why he was able to eat up 6 innings in 3 of his first 4 starts last year. I think the book's on him of this guy's in the zone a lot, and teams are attacking him quicker. I think it's why the strikeout numbers are down, although that doesn't seem to make sense for why his walk number has crept up to where it has, where it's 8 walks through the first 4 games. He just doesn't look... He hasn't taken that next step or gotten back to where he was in the first half of last year like I thought he was going to, because I did chalk up the second half last year too. It's just fatigue, right? He looks tired. If they had another arm, they probably would replace him in the rotation. He looks more like second half Libby right now that just happens to sustain velocity better.
But none of this matters because Jordan Walker's still hitting home runs, guys. Huh?
Yeah.
Another one.
Nothing like a J-Dub bomb.
Yeah, that's what PK keeps telling us. It doesn't matter. We just got to have fun watching certain things like that. Cardinals will be back at it tonight. 6:45 first pitch with Michael McGreevy on the mound against the Guardians. We'll get more into the Cardinals coming up in the 12 o'clock hour, talking about the offense, specifically with Jordan Walker. Coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to catch up with Jeremy Rutherford, Blues insider for The Athletic, as earlier today the Blues made the move of sending Theo Lindstein and Otto Stenberg down. So we'll get his thoughts thoughts on that and the Blues as they wrap up the regular season in the next couple of days. But coming up next, college hoops, because Mizzou made its first move of the transfer portal. It's actually a pretty decent move. That and Illinois adds to an already incredible roster. So blah, blah, blah. We can talk about that as well.
Oh.
It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. We'll continue next here on 101.
Missed the Blues game? Want to hear the highlights? Need player reaction? Want more analysis and opinion? It's all here on Curbside, your next day post-game podcast with the voice of the St. Louis Blues, Chris Kerber. Catch new episodes of Curbside every morning after every Blues game at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. Curbside is presented by Bellman Automotive. For the best price on a new Buick, GMC, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, or a used vehicle, shop Bellman in Troy. Online at Bellman.com. You can't do better than Bellman. ESPN has your chance to win a pair of passes to Holiday World and Splash and Safari. Free soft drinks, free parking, and free sunscreen at Holiday World and Splash and Safari. Find your shot to score a pair of free passes right now at 101ESPN.com or your 101 mobile app. Holiday World and Splash and Safari opens on May 9th. Start planning your trip at holidayworld.com. Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Along with Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Our Air Comfort Service text line 314-399-9646. Our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. Our studio cams brought to you by Air Alliance Team. You can join in over on the Graveyard Chat as well. Jeremy Rutherford is going to join us coming up in our next segment of The Athletic, our Blues Insider, to talk a little bit about the St. Louis Blues who took down the Minnesota Wild last night 6-3. But before we get to that, we got to talk a little hoops action because the Missouri Tigers, Bradford, good day that BK's not here, obviously, they reeled in their first transfer portal recruit. It's Jalen Carey from the Tennessee Volunteers, 6'8", 267-pounder, where watching some of the highlights on this kid, it's one of the areas that Mizzou needed to address. Somebody that can just impose their physical strength underneath the basket. That's something they just have not had. I'll be real curious, Bradford, your thoughts, because I have to imagine you're bringing in a guy like this who can play on your starting five because he's spent the last 2 years in the SEC, and you need to go find some physical strength to your basketball team. So I would say just from the general perspective and somebody who doesn't know a whole lot about college hoops, seems like a really good addition for Dennis Gates.
Yeah, third different SEC stop. I suppose we shouldn't be surprised about that given today's landscape, but I really like the move. Being your first real move, obviously, in the transfer portal. He's somebody who truly impressed me in watching him live in Columbia last season, was a big part of Tennessee's run to another Elite Eight appearance, and he gives you that requisite toughness and tenacity down low. Now, you have to certainly replace any number of guys, both in the backcourt and up front heading into next season. But you feel as if the offense with the freshman of Jason Crow Jr. coming in from Cali broke all kinds of scoring records. That's going to be in decent hands. I had some concerns about being able to replace the production up front. Now, Carey doesn't profile as a Sean Phillips II from last season. He's not your classic number 5 in the middle. But as far as actually being that ornery presence, right? Somebody who's very difficult to move underneath. This team, to me, Alex, had a lot of issues down the stretch, at least from a number standpoint, of being able to rebound the basketball effectively, especially on the offensive glass. So if there's somebody in there now you can plug in as the number 4, and it also allows you to bring about the development of another stud freshman in Tony Bryant a little more slowly. It's a win-win to me because when you're in the SEC, you're still talking about having to go up against a lot of imposing front lines, and this guy gives you that steeliness to do so.
Yeah, I really like the pickup. And now, with that being said, they still have work to do in the portal, but it's a good first addition
for sure
by Dennis Gates because, I mean, that rebounding and just the strength that he can bring down low to help them get onto the glass. We saw it in their final game of the year. That was their biggest problem, was rebounding. I mean, you look at their loss against Miami, they were minus 16 on the boards, and they only pulled down 7 offensive rebounds to Miami's 16.
That was a good game from Phillips.
Yeah, and they had a couple of games like that this year, right? I think it was it Texas maybe? Somebody in the SEC was pretty good rebounding squad that kind of shoved him around for a little bit.
Got hammered at home.
And I look at that and go, okay, he needed to address this. Now, I thought he was going to address this by just getting a bigger rebounding big man. But if you're going to do this, you also need to upgrade across the board, right? Like when you think of Illinois as a good rebounding team like they are, it's not just Ivisic that is the big man down low that's getting the rebounds. It's Mirkovic in that 4 spot that can really crash the glass. And whether this kid ends up starting for them or he comes off the bench, he's going to be a guy that can really help them clean up the board. So this is a really good get for Dennis Gates. And what is, as we've talked about, a very pivotal year for him with his freshman incoming class. This was a nice first pickup in the portal, and we'll see what else they've got in store.
Yeah, I mean, averaging 7 points per game, 6.8 rebounds per game. I mean, that's something that Mizzou just desperately needed. But like you said, T-Bone, they still got more work. And I think when we talked about this a couple of days ago, or if it was last week, they got like 3 guys they got to find to be in your starting 5 this season through the transfer portal. So we'll see if they can accomplish that. On the other side of things, I used a lot of tone there, but I think I needed to with no BK. Illinois already added to their heavily loaded roster, T-Bone. So what can you tell us about Vox?
Yeah, Vox was the pickup. Vox was the pickup that they made in the portal from Providence. He's a shooter, man. I mean, you look at it, he was a top 15 transfer pickup, depending on where you look. Right, The Athletic had him at number 10, 24/7 Sports 13. ESPN had him in the top 10 at number 9. Really good pickup for the Illini, for a team that's going to have to replace a decent amount of scoring with Wagler being gone, Boswell graduating out, along with Hummerkaus graduating out as well. As a freshman, he made the all-freshman team in the Big East, which is pretty solid, and he averaged 15.8 points per game, and he shot the ball very well, 40% from the field, 35% from 3. he's an excellent pickup, and he can get to the spots, and I'm curious to see what he looks like in the Illinois system. He's not very good defensively, but everything that I've read coming out of Champaign is they believe that they can fix that, which if they do, they just found a great replacement for one of their guards in Boswell or in Wagler. I love the pickup, and it's already on top of what's a loaded roster. Like today I read that they're thinking expectation is they're going to return basically everybody that was in the core from that Final Four run. The two Ivisic brothers, Mirkovic, on top of Stojakovic. All right, you return that with this pickup, and they're in on one of the top guards in the country in Blackwell, the transfer from Wisconsin. Illinois is not only keep retaining their players, they are reloading potentially even better to be a team to where, as Bradford and I were talking in the office today, I think they're probably a top 5 team right now in the preseason. If the preseason poll were released today, they'd probably be a top 5 team. If they can land that Blackwell kid from Wisconsin, odds are they might be the number 1 team in the country to start next season.
It's just an embarrassment of riches when it comes to scoring. And this isn't somebody who just put up a hollow, meaningless 15 points per game either. He was a linchpin for Kim English. Now, you can say what you want about the way in which Providence obviously finished that season, but he filled it up consistently. I think the only thing to me, the only aspect right now, Tanner, that prevents me from automatically slotting Illinois in as a top 3 preseason team entering next campaign would be from where are you going to find a little more of that toughness, of that competitiveness, of the sterling nature that you need defensively in the backcourt. That's the one aspect right now. If you can lock that in, to me, there's no telling. This team could potentially elevate even into the number 1 spot.
I think their answer to that is our guys showed a little bit of that when it came to the tournament. Because I'm with you. That was my concern in the season, and BK and I would talk about it, as you know, Alex, on the show of,
right.
Hey, man, right now, how do you beat Illinois? Well, you just go off the dribble, right? You go into the paint because Ivisic isn't a shot blocker, or Tomislav isn't. His brother's really good at it. But I think they saw in the tournament, I mean, they held up pretty well in a tough battle against Houston and in the loss in the Final Four to UConn. Those were 2 super physical teams.
Right.
And I think they look at that and go, man, we're returning most of our guys that are going to be playing down low, and Mirkovic and the Ivisic brothers, and then we'll maybe add in a couple of guards that can help us out. I don't think they're too worried about that. I think it's more of just they've got to find a way to find that next scorer that can come off of the bench as well, right? And that doesn't mean that Blackwell is that guy. That could mean like they recruit him and then slots Jake Davis from being in the starter's role to where he slides down to the bench and then takes on the Hummerkaus role. So I think they're in a really good spot going into the next year. And the fact that they feel, at least for now, and we know how quickly this can change in the modern game, but the fact that they feel for now they're going to be retaining all the guys that they thought they were going to is a huge win for them in a team that got to the Final Four.
In this era of college hoops, if you can retain that many of your normal players, especially in a Final Four season, you're already in a good spot. And honestly, anytime Illinois brings in some type of recruiter portal transfer, it really feels like they're going to strike with it. It's just the success that they've had. And honestly, it's the image that they have created in themselves of what they've accomplished over the last 4 to 5 seasons.
And really, you're more willing, I think, to look at and put that production into a small sample size and legitimize it because of the caliber of competition you faced there in the NCAA tournament, having turned the corner defensively because of the Houston factor, et cetera.
He's Bradford Bruns, Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get the questions and answers. You send us questions to our Air Comfort Service text line, 314-399-9646. We'll answer them. But coming up next, Jeremy Rutherford is going to join us, talk a little Blues hockey here on BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN has your shot to score a 4-pack of tickets to the next St. Louis Battlehawks home games at the Dome at America's Center. You could win a free 4-pack to see the Battlehawks take on the Columbus Aviators Friday, May 8th, or the Houston Gamblers Saturday, May 16th. Get all the ticket info for the next 2 Battlehawks home games and find your chance to win tickets right now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app. Start your day with a morning after on 101 ESPN. Get in the know first on everything St. Louis sports with Tim McKernan, Doug Vaughn, and Martin Kilcoy. Listen to TMA weekday mornings from 7 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The morning after is presented by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Walker Wallop's 8th moonshot. Good morning, I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Despite Jordan Walker's best efforts, St. Louis fell 9-3 to Cleveland last night at Busch Stadium. Number 18 has homered in 3 straight games. His next tax will come tonight against Southpaw Joey Cantillo. Ali Marmol, meanwhile, rolling with Michael McGreevy. Hockey, the Blues' home schedule ends this evening. Note Penguins puck drop set for roughly 8:30 p.m. Looking beyond STL's 6-3 win over Minnesota, those final 3 NHL playoff berths were clinched Monday as well. Welcome back, Philadelphia, Anaheim, and Los Angeles. Your Sports Center update was presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. It's time for the Rutherford Report with our Blues insider, Jeremy Rutherford, on 101 ESPN.
JR is brought to you by Evergreen Wealth Strategies, helping everyday people every day. Visit evergreen-ws.com.
6-3 week victory last night for the Blues over the Minnesota Wild, and you heard it right here in your home for the Blues 101 ESPN. Alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. As the Blues close out the home portion of their regular season tonight against the Penguins with, what a perfect time to start. 8:30 puck drop against the Pittsburgh Penguins, which makes a whole lot of sense tonight here at Enterprise Center. And then Thursday, they wrap up the regular season against the Utah Mammoth. And Jeremy Rutherford was in attendance, and my goodness, Jeremy Rutherford right now has been cranking out stories left and right. He had one on the ASL broadcast that will be taking place later on tonight, and then he just dropped one earlier today of Jimmy Snuggerud developing his second-to-none shot, so you can go check that out over on The Athletic. And he joins us now here on the Collier and Thompson hotline. JR, those fingers cramping up yet, my man, from all the typing?
Sausage fingers. Sausage fingers.
Well, it's good. You'll get some rest, including a game tonight and then, the podcast tomorrow and then a game on Thursday.
Yeah, but it feels like playoff hockey with this 8:30 start. And is it really going to be 8:30?
No, it's 8:50. A little nasty secret for everybody. 8:30 puck drop really means 8:50 puck drop. Yeah. You know what really grinds my gears, too? This is a side tangent that doesn't matter at all. I saw that Dallas and Minnesota's first playoff game against each other will be on Saturday afternoon, which is a complete joke because every time the Blues play in a first-round matchup, it's a 9:30 puck drop.
Yeah, it's funny because the Minnesota Riders were in yesterday, and I said, hey, have fun with those 9:30 starts. So they get a reprieve, I guess, in that game one, but I don't think they'll get a whole series of that.
Yeah, that was karma for you bringing that one up. So, Jared, let's talk at least the biggest news that we found out earlier today. I've already seen a lot of Blues fans kind of wondering what's going on. I think it's pretty obvious, but I'm curious your thoughts. Theo Lindstein and Otto Stenberg sent down to the American Hockey League today.
Yeah, that's a situation where they want to get them to Springfield playing for the Thunderbirds. They're in a playoff race there, clinging to a spot. And while the Blues, yes, they have a couple more games remaining. And as we saw last night with those two guys, Stenberg and Lindstein, scoring and playing very well, by the way. I mean, we talk a lot about Snuggerud, Dvorsky, Juracek coming, Carbonell, rightly so, but get excited about Stenberg and Lindstein. So they're going to go down and play some games for the Thunderbirds and see if they can keep that season going. And in the meantime, the Blues will close out the season with some of these 12, 13, 14 forwards that they've been carrying.
I'm just going to ask this follow-up question because I guarantee it's being typed into our text line right now, JR. Why didn't the Blues decide to quote-unquote tank earlier by sending Stenberg and Lindstein down to the minor leagues rather than now?
It's a fair question, and I get it. When you look at coming out of the Olympic break and the Blues had pretty good odds at that number one overall pick, and the rather strong finish. Granted, they didn't make the playoffs, Alex, but it's taken them to a situation where 8th, 9th, and if they win a couple games, could they be 9th, 10th? Yeah, and so I know some fans are disappointed with that, and I'm not going to sit here and say you're wrong. If the Blues could have lost more down the stretch, then they'd have a higher pick. It's obvious, and that would be good for the organization. But I just over the years, I stick to being a firm believer of you want to end the season on a positive note. Look, Dylan Holloway's going to the offseason. Jimmy Snuggerud's going to the offseason. All these guys are going in there feeling pretty good about their game. And big picture, that means more to me than whether you got the 7th pick or the 10th pick. We've seen over the years that sometimes those later picks end up having long NHL careers. So it's going to shake out how it shakes out. And you never know. You still have a chance with the percentage chance to get that number 1 overall pick, and real good odds with Detroit and St. Louis having good picks in the first round.
JR, last night with the lines that they ended up rolling out there for the game, do you think that was maybe kind of a preview as to what their plans might be going into next year, where Buch ends up back on the wing in the top 6, Dvorsky centering that 3rd line, and Stenberg on the 4th line?
Yeah, I think so. I think that all in all, Buchnevich is a winger. I think that he played decent at center this year, better than he has in the past. But I think that with this contract, 5 years left to go, and this was not a great year for him, as everybody knows. He's got to get back on that wing. They got to have some playmaking on their line. It doesn't look like it's going to be Robert Thomas because he's played so well with Holloway and Snuggerud. So they're going to have to find a center that's going to have to make some plays, and Buchnevich is going to have to convert. I mean, when you look at Buchnevich's year, like if we had a video clip in front of us and we were watching 20 replays from him this year, there were a million chances in front of the net that he just didn't finish, and he has to do a better job of executing. And if he did finish off those plays, we could be talking about a 25, 30 goal season for Pavel Buchnevich. So I firmly believe that he's got to get back there. I think Dvorsky, I think he can be a second-line center in the league, Tanner. If he starts out as a third-line center and plays his way up next year, that's fine, but I think the Blues do need more help up the middle, certainly. And with Stenberg, I think you can play him third line, fourth line, pinch. In a pinch, he bumps up to the second line, for a game, whatever they need. I just think he is such a smart player and so good defensively for a young player. Those two traits, intelligence and good defense, is going to take him a long way. And regardless of where he plays, even if it's on that 4th line, I think he can help him out. We're
talking with Jeremy Rutherford of The Athletic. You can find his work over at The Athletic or over on X at JP Rutherford. Jerry, I want to read this quote to you from Jim Montgomery yesterday. We're going to talk about this in the 12 o'clock hour, but I do want just your reaction when you heard Jim Montgomery say this. Quote, "I try not to get too excited about playing really well when you're so far out of it. There's a lot of people that make a livelihood of being really good when your team's almost basically eliminated. We need to find more players that want to be really good right from the start of the year. That's something that as an organization we have to instill, and something that we're going to try and make sure we do from the start of the year next year." What were your thoughts when you heard him say that yesterday?
He's setting the table for October, and they're going to do plenty of work in this offseason. They've already started on it with Alexander Steen coming in. They're devising a plan. I don't have any particulars on what they're going to aim to do. We'll talk to the team this Saturday. They'll have locker cleanout, and we'll talk to management and talk to some players about what they can do next October. Obviously, it doesn't start in October. It has to start before then. But this is 2, 3, 4 years in a row now where you're behind schedule once you get to November and December in terms of the standings. And listen, we can talk all we want. Great record after the Four Nations tournament, a great record after the Olympic break. Look at these point totals for these specific players. But the bottom line is it didn't start at the beginning of the year, and that's why the Blues are going to be watching the playoffs. And so when Jim Montgomery comes out and says that, hey, let's cool it with the talk about the team making it a race down the stretch, and let's talk about being in the race from the get-go.
Is there a chance, JR, that he's also kind of speaking to that maybe he, along with the front office, doesn't all the way buy into what they're seeing from individual players? Like, for example, maybe as much as we're sitting here being like, you can't trade Robert Thomas for how great he has looked since the trade deadline, are they looking at that a little differently because of how they're performing when they're out of it versus when they're competitive early on in the season? Yeah, he might be, indicating the play of a few individuals. But I think with Robert Thomas, and forget about, I'm not going to sit here and say, like I said a couple weeks ago, repeat, if he's banged up, he's injured, he has the procedure and he plays well. So now automatically he's going to be playing like he is now on October 8th next year. I don't know that. All I know is I think we've seen enough elite performances from Robert Thomas to think that he doesn't need necessarily a wake-up call from the coach in the end of the season comments to say, hey, be ready from day one. So I don't know that that's
any sort of thing he's trying to point out to management or point out to the player. I think that, Robert Thomas has to know that. And if it was because he wasn't healthy at the start of the season, then, let's make sure that he's healthy. And in these exit interviews that Jim Montgomery and Doug Armstrong and Alexander Steen are going to have with these players, they can tell them that directly. They don't need to do it in the press conference. So, yeah, there could be some backdrop there with the comments, but I think there's going to be enough conversations about the start of next season as they make their way out the door that that should be really underscored by Jim Montgomery and the team as these guys go their separate ways.
JR, do you think that this Blues team needs to make a significant move this offseason, whether that means significant in terms of selling off, like trading Parayko or trading Thomas, as Alex had just mentioned, since his name was in the rumor mill at the deadline, or going out there and going the other direction and saying, let's be aggressive and package these picks together and go out and get whether it be a second-line winger or a second-line center, compared to potentially just saying, let's run this thing kind of back, move on from Kyrou and just replace him with Carbonneau and call it quits for the offseason?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a little bit, it layers the answer. To me, it's a little bit somewhere in the middle. I think that you need to continue with the young core. I think you need to understand, which they do, that this team belongs to Holloway, Snuggerud, Thomas, if he's still here, Broberg, Joel Hofer. That's first and foremost. Then you can still explore these trades that you maybe were close to at the trade deadline, whether it's Robert Thomas, whether it's Colton Parayko. And listen, as much as you don't want to trade a Robert Thomas and some people don't want to trade a Colton Parayko, look at the potential package that could be coming back. And if that sets you up well for the future, then maybe that's something you have to pursue. In the meantime, I don't think they should be doing anything where they're kind of going for it or really making big deals to set themselves up for next year. Where I could see a big trade, and they probably do need to make it, is kind of still with that core. Like, if it's not Robert Thomas, is it Jordan Kyrou? Is it Buchnevich if there's a taker? I just think if they go down the path of the young core, that's good. But if they come back looking a lot like they did this year, I just don't think that that's going to be enough to just kind of support the group that they have moving forward with those names that I mentioned. So, they didn't get it done this year. To me, if you had to put a list together of the top things why the Blues aren't in the playoffs, it's because the best players didn't produce early in the season, especially, and throughout the year, and you can see it in their numbers. So I don't know that those guys are going to be able to help moving forward. And yes, make a big deal. You do need to do something to have this team with a different look at the start of next year.
Jared, before we let you go, I have to ask you about your piece. I know you've been working on it for some time. Jimmy Snuggerud developing that elite shot that he possesses. What'd you learn, and what can people learn when they check out your article on The Athletic?
Yeah, it's great. So I love writing these stories, Alex. Thanks for asking, because you go back and you talk to the people who were there with Jimmy when he was in the 5th grade. And, hey, he's got a great shot, and his dad stops me and he says, hey, that's not talent. That's reps and reps and reps. And I felt bad going up to Jimmy and saying, hey, your dad said this isn't talent. and he said, no, we did a lot of reps. And the coolest thing is when you learn how these players who are becoming stars in the NHL were instructed earlier in their career. The first thing that Dave Snuggerud, his dad, and J.P. LaFontaine, the nephew of Pat LaFontaine, who was Jimmy Snuggerud's coach at Breakaway Academy in Minnesota, they said, shoot the puck hard every single time it comes to you. And what that did, Jimmy told me, is created a mindset. So it doesn't matter if he's in the slot, he's at the blue line, he's in the corner. If he's got an angle and the puck's coming his way, he's going to shoot it. And we've seen that. And that's what the Blues need. And secondly, just another little detail here is his coach, LaFontaine, told me that Jimmy used to vacate those shooting areas and maybe go try to help a teammate win a board battle in the corner. Hey, Jimmy, don't do that. We need you in the slot. We need you in the faceoff circle. And we saw that in Anaheim. Robert Thomas is trying to win a board battle. All of a sudden, he makes an unbelievable pass out to the slot. And if you watch that video, for those people who remember that goal that Snuggerud scored in Anaheim right around the trade deadline, he stood in that faceoff circle for about 6 or 7 seconds until that puck popped out from Thomas, and then he one-timed it, and it's in the back of the net. So those are just little nuances of the game that, maybe you don't see unless you talk to these people about Jimmy's past and what he had to learn to get to where he is. So, yeah, just a lot of detail on how he developed his shot.
It's really great stuff, so make sure you check out that article on top of a ton more, because with the offseason pretty much getting into high gear on Saturday, that's where you're going to find all of the content is over at The Athletic from Jeremy Rutherford, and also on the Last Minute Blues podcast, and also here on 101 ESPN. JR, always appreciate the time, my man. Go rest those sausage fingers, and we'll talk tomorrow for the podcast.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, guys.
There you go. Jeremy Rutherford. Again, check out his work over at X at JP Rutherford. I guess it's a really good point that JR references there that I didn't think of in our conversations, T-Bone, about him could he get to that 40-goal number? Could he get to that 50-goal number? It's going to be very difficult to do what Cole Caulfield is doing, but him talking about those reps and just strength when you're taking those shots, you see it when he takes those shots now. Like, he puts his entire body into it. He's only 21 years old. And, I remember when Vladimir Tarasenko came over from the KHL, and, Ken Hitchcock had talked about he's just got man strength. That's the thing that Jimmy Snuggerud hasn't even touched yet, man strength. Cole Caulfield scored 50 goals. He's 25 years old. If Jimmy Snuggerud continues to develop, and I think Jim Montgomery referenced this yesterday in pregame when he was asked about him, he's like, look, he's got other areas that he can focus on to make his game even more elite. And Montgomery kind of comped it to Matt Boldy and said, he could get to where Matt Boldy is. It's just you have to continue to grow the details of the game. If you're talking about more details from a guy that's trying to win board battles and adds more strength to his shot, I do think that this can be that superstar caliber player like Cole Caulfield is. It's just a matter of, does he continue to develop in the right direction? Yeah,
and as he gets stronger, like you said, hopefully that ends up translating into more goals for him, and especially if you keep his playmaking center with him in Robert Thomas, because like you mentioned, Vladdy, I'll use him as the comp since he's the one that I knew growing up, is Vladdy in that first full season, 21 goals, 43 points. The next year when he was 23 years old, 37 goals. And by the way, in a time in which goal scoring was not up in the NHL like it is now. So it's very intriguing to see what his possibilities could be. And I think he's going to have to be a 30-goal scorer for the Blues moving forward if they're going to be able to take that next step as an organization. Well, and keep in mind, too, with Tarasenko, and this is no disrespect to the guys that he played with, he never had a playmaker like Robert Thomas is for Jimmy Snuggerud. Yeah. He had Backus, he had Shen, he had Yori Laterra, didn't really mesh well with Ryan O'Reilly. He's never had that type of playmaker. And so that guy scored 40 goals without it. Imagine what Jimmy Snuggerud could do with a Robert Thomas. We'll get more into the Blues in the 12 o'clock hour, but coming up next, questions and answers. You send us your questions to the Air Comfort Service text line 314-399-9646. We'll get your answers next here on 101 ESPN.
The Blues play on 101 ESPN.
Big save on one end, tie game on the other.
Tonight, Blues and Penguins. Pregame at 7:30. Puck drop at 8:30.
Score! He tucks it in with a great move.
This is your exclusive home for Blues hockey. 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario back with you to talk about my friends out at Ted Drew's, famous frozen custard off of Chippewa, the St. Louis tradition that has been open since 1929. And it is open now daily for its 97th season, which means warmer weather, which means summertime is right around the corner. And it means my daughters endlessly ask me, Daddy, could we go to Ted Drew's? Could we go to Ted Drew's? And it's hard to say no as much as they ask. So we always find our way over to Ted Drew's at some point throughout the week because it's those traditions I get to build. I love when my daughters ask it just because I used to do that with my parents of going to dinner and going to Ted Drew's and enjoying that time together. So I get to do that with my girls, which is so much fun. And it truly is. You see it all the time when you're out at Ted Drew's. You see kids running around the parking lot with their family. You see friends gathered together, all getting that delicious frozen custard that has been built on 4 generations of families running that Ted Drew's business. While you're out there, walk across the parking lot and check out the gift shop. They've got a historical museum where you could see tons of history of Ted Drew's, St. Louis, Route 66. You can also buy Ted Drew's apparel and Ted Drew's gift cards. Plus, they're hiring, so if you're looking for a job this summer, visit teddrews.com for more information. Real custard, real tradition. Ted Drew's, it's St. Louis.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. You've got questions, BK and Ferrario may have the answers. Questions and Answers is presented by 100 West Dental. Does your dentist actually satisfy you? Dr. Pryor and his team will at 100westdental.com.
314-399-9646 is our Air Comfort Service text line. Also, our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. You can join us over there on the Graveyard chat. Sorry, guys. It looks like there's a lot of Blues ones coming in, so we'll just have to dive through some of these right now. From the 319, has Berggren solidified a spot on the Blues roster next year?
I think so. He looks really good, and I think part of the reason he's just not playing now, which I don't know that I really agree with this, and I think you and I are on the same page. I would just keep playing him over Druin.
I'm totally with you.
I don't get the sense Druin's going to be here next year.
Druin's got a contract, and so I think they're trying to see, like, hey, is there untapped potential here? And there's not.
No.
Yeah, so I also think that's why Stenberg was sent down.
Yeah.
They're like, we need help to get to the playoffs. Send Stenberg down, and now we can play Berggren.
Solidified is a strong word. It really is. But by the same token, if you view it through the lens of Alexander Steen moving forward, you have seen more than enough, quite honestly, this year.
Is solidified a strong word? I bet you could come up with one better.
Well, I'd like to.
I was to say, why don't you check into that thesaurus mind of yours? I guarantee you can find one.
Coach Muse is on it.
Alex, do you believe the Blues? By the way, he's in town tonight. I so wanted to have Bradford go out for the pregame skates or something like that, just to see, like, hey, Dan, can we get a picture? For those that don't know, we talked about the junk drawer yesterday. Look up a picture of Dan Muse and then go over to our YouTube channel and look at Bradford. He's the same freaking guy. Alex, do you believe the Blues are going to trade up to get Caleb Malholtra in the draft? Caleb Malholtra is, I think, from everyone's perspective, the best centerman in this draft. Like, it's McKenna, Stenberg as the best players, and then Malholtra is probably the next best player, arguably with some of the defensemen. I don't think you have a chance at it. I think he goes top 3 or top 5. And right now, I would say unless the lottery happens, Vancouver's not trading theirs. Calgary's not trading theirs. Rangers aren't trading theirs. Who am I blanking on? The Maple Leafs aren't trading theirs. And then there's another team in the top 5 right now. Nobody's trading their top 5 pick, in my opinion. So, no, I don't think you have a shot. I think if you're not winning the lottery, you're probably drafting either one of the defensemen, probably the back half of the group of defensemen that we really like, or one of the next tier of forwards that you're going to get.
Yeah, I just wouldn't expect them to be able to trade up because of what you just said there. And, like, look across the most recent drafts. There just haven't been a ton of trades of trading up for a pick. It doesn't happen as much anymore, which I'm not really sure why. I guess it's because teams have been burned in the past. So that's why I would say I wouldn't expect it. I think they would probably end up either trading down or they would end up just drafting all 3 of their picks and not moving up.
T-Bone, would you rather trade Ramon Urias, or would you rather keep him and trade Nolan Gorman?
Boy, these are all bad options.
Welcome to the rebuild. We'll talk Nolan Gorman more in the 1 o'clock hour.
I would probably say you trade Urias because right now you're still selling low on Gorman. You know, I think even if Gorman has a bad year, and I originally didn't think of this, but BK convinced me of it a couple of weeks ago. I think there's a chance if Gorman has a bad year, he's back again, and then you're starting third baseman next year. And I know that sounds wild to say because everybody's ready to give up. You don't really have another guy to play that position, right? Urias isn't that guy. There's nobody really down in the minor leagues knocking on the door. So you just keep rolling the dice and seeing if Gorman gets back to the true left-handed power that he has, because if he does, then that's a guy that could have value at the deadline. And that's the only reason I'm trading Urias. Not like you'd get a lot for him, but he's playing really well. There's a team that could look at him and say, yeah, we'll give you a lottery ticket prospect, which is probably what you get. We'll give you a lottery ticket prospect because we could use a good Gold Glove caliber defender and a guy that can match left-handed pitching on our roster.
I would trade both of them at the deadline if there's interest in them.
Yeah, I would too. I
don't care about my third base spot. I'll find somebody to play third base. I found a Urias who could play third base.
I would if Gorman is hitting, to your point. I would potentially cash in.
So just not trade if the stock is low.
Yeah, like if he's like what he's been so far.
Just keep him
keep seeing if he can get back.
All right, final one here. Who are some of the way too early but realistic trade targets for the Blues this offseason? I think we've mentioned them. I would put Brady Tkachuk in there only if Brady wants to be traded out, and I don't know that to be true. I would put Jason Robertson on there. I would put Matty Beniers on there. I would put Shane Wright on there if you have any interest in him. Here's one that I told you in the office that I'm kind of tinfoiling up. I wonder if there's a way to pry Michael Misa away from San Jose. And for those that don't know, Michael Misa was the second overall pick in 2 years ago draft. He was, I think I talked about him on the show before about hopefully the Blues could get that pick. He's like 60 goals in the juniors before he was drafted. I wonder if you could find a way to put a package together that includes Binnington and Kyrou and some picks to go out there and get that type of player. But, I mean, honestly, you don't know until teams are starting to get eliminated from the playoffs. That's where things really start. I think right now the teams that you're targeting, Seattle, New Jersey, Columbus, and then I guessed Ottawa, but I don't think Ottawa's really in a spot unless Brady says he wants to go.
Who's the Columbus guy?
That's that Kenton Johnson that I've brought up.
Oh, yeah.
Former top 5 pick. He's a 4th-line player for them right now.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
So those would be mine. I've seen a couple people ask for Ferrario 5s. We'll probably do a Ferrario 5 once we get into the offseason.
Those are never right.
We got lots of time to get to. Yeah, you're right. Matt Swanson will be elite by the end of the season.
Still got time.
Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up next, the Cardinals. The Cardinals offense is doing a whole lot of nothing now. Thank God Jordan Walker has figured it out. We'll discuss next here on 101 ESPN.
You can now watch 101 ESPN live on our Air Alliance Team Studio Cams. Catch every show live on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. 101 ESPN Studio Cams.
Presented by the Air Alliance Team Heating and Cooling. Getting the job done quickly, correctly, 100% of the time.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis, 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
So as the Cardinals lose last night 9-3 to the Cleveland Guardians, this offense isn't good, T-Bone. With Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario, and it's, I understand the Tony La Russa quote, it's the first week of the season, blah, 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 it's still early. J.J. Weatherholt, 1 for 5 in that game. He's got a .213 batting average right now with a .608 OPS. Ivan Herrera, 1 for 5, a .193 batting average with the .611 OPS. Burleson's kind of looks like he's starting to heat up a little bit.
Burley's numbers are better than you would expect because Burley, 5 games ago, was saying, I don't feel like I'm, clicking yet. And he's like, this guy's got an 800 OPS. What's he talking about?
Honestly, it's because you look around the rest of the team and, nobody's above a 700 OPS. And in all reality, that's what it is. Gorman, Wynn, all below a 700 OPS. And the only guy you have hitting right now is Jordan Walker. The offense was something that I was looking forward to seeing this season. And again, back to what we said in the open, T-Bone, it's the reminder of, hey, it's a rebuild. It's not supposed to be pretty. But I think people were hoping for more of a clearer picture with some of these guys. Like Herrera and Burleson, I'd probably put at the top of that list because they've been in the league long enough, and you were like, okay, now is where you want to start to see them emerge into that consistent player. I know some people are probably worried about J.J. Weatherholt. It's the same as the Jordan Walker comment. I think this is just the early portion of his career, and you're going to start to find things out. But you have a really good idea of what Nolan Gorman is. I think you have a great idea of what Nathan Church is, which, by the way, another guy that didn't realize how many outs that were actually on the board. Yeah, it happens.
What's going on
Watching
lately?
the center fielder yell at him was just beyond hilarious. Pages hasn't been able to hit. Scott's hits have essentially come from the bunts. I mean, there's just not a whole lot of outs with this offense, T-Bone, and I know it's the rebuild, and I know we're supposed to be excited for what the up-and-coming pieces are of this team. You don't have slug with the exception of Jordan Walker. You don't have a whole lot of on-base with these guys. It's starting to get a little bleak with some of these hitters right now in your right lineup.
Yeah, I mean, the offense is kind of what I thought it was going to be, and I say that knowing that I think there's two guys that have that below 700 OPS mark that you said that I think are going to be fine. Like Weatherholt, I think is going to be fine. Weatherholt is still putting together competitive at-bats. He doesn't hit the ball extremely hard, so I don't know that you're going to see him hit for as many doubles as maybe I was expecting this year. But remember, I was always a little bit lower on his home run power coming into the season. So he may just be more of the average hitter than a guy that's going to be hitting for doubles this season like I originally thought. Herrera, I think, is going to be fine. I think what you're seeing from Herrera is a guy that's missed a week or two of spring training because of that knee issue. Outside of that, though, like I'm not surprised that Gorman's not hitting. You know, I'm not surprised that Scott's not lifting up that on-base percentage and hitting for a better average, which then in turn means he's not on base to try and steal 60 bases like we talked about on opening day, which looks stupid at this point.
No, come on, man. T-Bone 3's always right.
I'm not, but that wasn't me, by the way. So JC and Church, like I'm not surprised those guys aren't hitting. Same with Pages, right? We knew Pages wasn't going to hit. The thing that surprised about Pages is his defense in the early going. I'm not surprised by this. This is why, like, when we were talking early on and after, like, the first week and you and BK were going back and forth of, hey, maybe this is more exciting than we thought. I'm going, no. I wouldn't count on that. They don't hit any for any power. I mean, you look at what Jordan Walker has done this season. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, he leads baseball in home runs. Guys, they are slugging as a team 359.
Yeah.
Walker's on an incredible tear, and yet they are still bottom 10 in slugging percentage this year.
23rd in baseball.
Yeah, like I'm not surprised by what we're seeing. Herrera getting off to a slow start, a little surprising, but understandable. Weatherholt kind of learning the big leagues, but still putting together competitive at-bats. Not too surprised. I think there's nothing that's surprising about this offense. I think this is what it's going to look like this year for them from an offensive perspective.
Individually, Herrera's lack of production has been perhaps the one surprising thing to me from this lineup. After the first 7-8 games, you figured that Burleson would gradually, progressively begin to get on track. That's precisely what we've seen. But Tanner, you hit the nail on the head. While I was pretty enthused about what I saw, yes, in the nation's capital. When you pile up 19 runs over the course of 3 games, but then you also remind yourself, okay, it was Washington, right?
The guys that we could hit.
Yes, I figured there was a decent opportunity to foster that momentum, extend it into the series against the Bo Sox. No such luck. So if you really do take that sobering deep dive into this team's collective offensive statistics, and you realize even with Jordan Walker leading the major leagues in home runs, you're 23rd now, 24th for that matter, in average. As I said, 23rd in slugging percentage. And last week, prior to that series against Boston, coming back to Busch Stadium, you got the feeling, if you were really parsing through the figures, oh, all right, this team is 6th overall in home runs. Oh, this team also is 6th as far as having been able to draw the walks. We saw some mirage-like numbers then, and now you're beginning to see that reality, I think, settle in.
I'm curious for you guys, what has been more surprising to you? The offensive numbers and its struggles, the pitching staff's struggles, or none of this is surprising to you? What would you say
I'd
there?
probably say the offense, and it's only because I thought Herrera, Burleson, Gorman, Wynn, and Weatherholt would be a little bit more competitive than what they are. And I also understand you're 2 weeks in, and in another 2 weeks we could be all eating crow because they at least start to figure it out. I never expected this team to be world beaters. I never thought they'd be a top 10 offense. I thought they'd be middle of the pack. I'm not surprised by the pitching. I was always very limited on the pitching. BK was the one that was trying to sway us on it could be better than what last year's was. And again, we said that's a low bar to clear for how bad that was last season. But Dustin May is not matching what Sonny Gray did. And I don't think Matthew Liberatore or Michael McGreevy are going to be able to kind of keep within that median range. So I would say it's the offense. Like, I thought Herrera would have taken that step to being like, oh, okay, yeah, this is a middle of the order bad. Even though Burleson's numbers look good, I thought Burleson was going to be that consistent where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, he's figured it out.
Right.
And then Wynn. I thought Wynn was going to be much more competitive, and right now it's starting to feel like he's probably a somewhere between a 7, 8, 9 hole hitter on your team. So that would probably be the most surprising to me, because I didn't think they'd be this bad.
It's the offensive shortcomings for me, and it's not especially close. Now, to your point, Alex, Mason Wynn hitting 175 on the season, you simply can't have that given. Yes, I understand all of the accolades, and rightfully so, about the defense, but this was the year in which you had hoped for that big step forward for the course of 162 from an offensive standpoint. And Herrera, I'll go back to him, Tanner, for just a second, because we saw some peaks and valleys following the injury last year, right? The return. But it seemed as if when the month of September began, things began to click again. You're hitting about 270. He left to the yard 8 times, 16 runs batted in. So I figured you would see him with the opportunity, the ability definitely to revert to the form that we saw in the first month plus of last season. That's been the biggest sticking point for me from the rotation. This is precisely what I expected all along.
See, it's interesting. I find this fascinating, so I'm glad I asked this question, because I would say, no, it's the pitching that's been more surprising to me. I leaned none of them. But I actually, even though I didn't think the rotation would be good. Don't get me wrong, I didn't. But I thought Leahy would translate a little better in the first comings to the rotation. You know, I thought Libby would get closer back to being first half Libby than more of second half with just sustained velo. I knew Palante was going to be very good. Dustin May's been disappointing so far in the rotation. McGreevy's been good. He's the one that's probably disappointed the most. Yeah, McGreevy's been good even though the stuff's not there. And then I thought the bullpen was going to be better. You know, now, I thought when I said that, it was mostly the 3 big arms of JoJo, O'Brien, and Swanson. Well, Swanson hasn't been very good. The bullpen, they're still searching for answers in the underbelly of the pen. If I would have came into the year and said, hey, the offense is going to have 2 guys hitting in the early going of the year and everybody else is going to be struggling, it wouldn't have been surprising to anybody. The part that would have been surprising is if I would have said Walker's hitting, not Herrera. Yeah. So the offense is doing actually kind of what I expected. And like I said, I expect Herrera's going to eventually figure this out. Weatherholt, I have confidence in at least being potentially a league average hitter this year. Mm-hmm. But you know, all along, like when we would have conversations about Weatherholt coming into the year, and you know, we would talk about like, can he be Brendan Donovan? Can he be 20% above league average? I said my plan is he's at or below league average this year because he's a rookie, and all these guys struggle when they're rookies for the most part. Don't get me wrong, there are guys that just hit the big leagues and just take off from there, but I don't think there's really anything surprising about the offense. Not hitting for power, okay. Not shocking. You're telling me that this, like, we're going to scratch and claw and we're going to hit singles isn't working? Shocker in the modern game. I would say it's the pitching that's been more disappointing for me so far. Yeah, I was very skeptical on Kyle Leahy. I know that there was optimism. I was skeptical with that. I thought Palante was probably going to match close to what Eric Fetty looked like last year. And then McGreevy was just kind of an unknown for me because I heard the hype, but I also was like, yeah, but I don't know if it matches the expectation. The 2 that are disappointing is Dustin May and Liberatore, because I thought those 2 guys would at least be the front end of a rotation, not 1s and 2s, but for this team, guys that could carry you. And right now, with the exception of 2 bad starts for Dustin May, I mean, he could have figured it out in that last one and be fine the rest of the way, which again, 2 weeks versus a full month. But yeah, I mean, the offense, I just thought there was going to be a little bit more excitement with those players. And right now, it just doesn't seem like you're going to have that, with the exception of Jordan Walker, who, I mean, again, all of this being said, give me something to root for this season. And right now it's Jordan Walker, who hit his 8th home run again last night. And another, as we like to call it here on BK and Ferrario, piss missile down the middle. Yeah. Right out of the baseball field. Yeah, what you said, I think you said it yesterday. He's become must-watch television. Yeah. When he takes that bat, you have to stop what you're doing and watch his ABs, because he makes it look easy, right? Like that ball he hit yesterday, if you blinked, you missed it, it was gone. Like that's how hard he crushed that baseball out into left field, and he ends up with 2 hits, and that infield single that he had, he was running, I think it's like 30.2 feet per second. He's down swinging, the first base line. He's swinging harder too, but it doesn't seem that way, right? The numbers suggest, but it's easy right now. Yeah, like you see him swinging, and you go, boy, that looked kind of easy. Then you look and you're like, holy crap, he swung the bat how hard? And how hard did he hit the baseball? I mean, it's incredible. Yeah, it's wild right now. So at least they got that to root for, which is something to seriously get excited about if you're a Cardinals fan. With Bradford Bruns and Tanner Hendricks, and I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up in 15 minutes, Jim Montgomery seems to be hesitant to buy into this recent success for the Blues. What does that mean for their picture moving forward? We'll get to that in 15, but coming up next, you send us a scenario. We'll tell you if we're going to bet it or forget it next here on 101 ESPN.
It's time for another moment in Blues history
On this day back in 2002, the Blues would put 5 goals up on the Detroit Red Wings, handing them their 17th loss of the season. Ray Ferraro would get the scoring started for the Blues in the first. Detroit would tie it up in the second, but then Pavel Demitra, Scott Young, both on the power play, would give the Blues a 2-goal lead. Detroit would score first in the third, then the Blues on the power play, Daniel Corso, and then Corey Stillman would cap off the 5th goal of the game.
This date in Blues history is powered by Classic Air Care.
Make your life more comfortable for all your HVAC, plumbing, and electrical needs. ClassicAirCare.com.
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Vegas sets them up, and we're here to make the call. It's BK and Ferrario's Bet It or Forget It on 101 ESPN.
888-399-9646 is our Air Comfort Service text line. You can also join in over on the Graveyard Chat on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. You send us a scenario, we will tell you if we are going to bet it or forget it. Guys, with a couple of games left in the regular season, bet it or forget it. Somehow, some way, the Blues select in the top 5.
Oh.
Now, this is any scenario. This is lottery. This is finishing in that spot.
Okay.
This is trade. They select in the top 5 come June.
I'm thinking forget it. Right now they have the 9th best lottery odds, which means the percentage of winning that lottery is low.
It's like 3%, I think. Yeah, like 3. I think 8%.
5%.
5%. I was going to say
3.5 if they drop down to 10.
Eighth place in the draft is 6%.
So
Detroit's got a 1% chance.
Your odds aren't great. I'm going to say forget it. I don't think they're going to have a top 5 pick.
Somebody yesterday on the text line actually referred to me as Captain Optimism with respect to the Blues, which is a label I prefer.
I still refer to you as Dan Muse, but
fair enough. Anyway, I like it, and so I'm going to continue to operate along those lines. I'm saying bet it, and here's why, Alex, because as of last night, we understand now each and every NHL playoff berth has been clinched. Not a lot for which to play for so many of these squads. Things they can get nutty for the last 2 to 3 games down the stretch. Why not? Let's feel it.
Well, I just simmed the lottery and they dropped a spot, so.
Oh, way to go, man. By the way, a little update for you on the Pittsburgh Penguins tonight. No Crosby, so you don't get to watch Sidney Crosby play a hockey game.
What a middle finger from the Penguins.
No
Letang?
No Evgeny Malkin.
Oh, my gosh.
No Letang. No Carlson.
I'm
But
not staying up till 9 o'clock to watch
you get to watch Kevin Hayes.
Ugh.
They do have some players like Ben Kindle, their young rookie who's performing well, is playing in this one. I did mention Kevin Hayes. Rutger McGrody, another top player that they have in their system, is playing. But yeah, all of their best guys will not be in action tonight. T-Bone, what do you got?
Boy, well, and we don't even get to watch some of our more exciting pieces in Lindstein and Stenberg.
Yep,
That is
so
extremely frustrating.
everybody that's like, you need to tank the rest of the way. It is literally impossible to tank the rest of the way.
Guys, bet it or forget it. Dalibor Dvorsky will be a 20-goal scorer next year.
I'll bet that. I think if he has wingers that can pose threats offensively, he can be a really good weapon. And I think his assist numbers go up. And at the power play, I would have to. I mean, let's be honest, it can't get worse, right?
Well,
I mean, he's got 12 this season, and we can all agree he's hit a lot of peaks and valleys. So, yeah I think he's a 20-goal scorer.
I'm going to bet it because until proven otherwise, he projects as what? Your number 2 center for next season, right? So you're going to be getting premier ice time, obviously, premium ice time there. And to reiterate Alex's point, obviously, if you are surrounded by capable wingers, we'll see how all of the lines shake out. You like his chances. I think it's going to be necessary for this team to find and unearth more and more sources of secondary scoring there.
I would say I would say forget it for now, but you could convince me on it in like 2 years. And I can even see the path, to your point, like if he has better wingers with him, and if the power play improves and he really gets to that one-time shot a little bit more on the power play, he could get there. I think he's maybe 2 years away from being a 20-goal scorer. Maybe. I think there's another year of kind of learning the NHL, and then he'll be ready to go.
Maybe. Brentford, what do you got?
15 would be acceptable. We'll take that maybe. All right, guys. So it was a crazy night around town sports-wise. We'll forgive anybody for maybe not paying as much attention to the national baseball scene, but having said that, we saw some special stuff occurring in the Bronx. Baseball's top 4 active home run leaders were in action for Yankees Angels. That's right, Judge, Goldschmidt, Trout, obviously, and Stanton. Trout currently playing, believe it or not. So I beg the question here. We see one last 30 home run season from Mike Trout, who jacked 2 of those last night. Bet it or forget it. Went 25 plus last season. Again, healthy at the moment.
Yeah, I mean,
what do you think?
If he's healthy, I think he gets there. I mean, 26 in 130 games, I just don't think he's healthy. So I would say forget it because I don't think he stays healthy all season.
I'm kind of with Alex. I mean, we're way past prime Mike Trout.
Sure.
I would forget this. I don't think he'll do 30 home runs again because I'm not convinced he can stay healthy. And we're really starting to see his numbers start to come down, right? Like you look at his numbers from a season ago, slugged below 500, which I know seems like a high bar to clear. That's kind of who Mike Trout was, right? He was the big-time slugger. He's just so beat up at this point that I'm not convinced his body can, A, hold up for 162, let alone that his body will allow him to hit 30 home runs.
What a shame the Angels are just a terrible organization.
I know. It's
like
incredible.
The fact that guy never really had a shot to win a World Series is just a joke.
They never made the playoffs with Trout and Ohtani.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And then only made it once with Trout and Pujols.
I mean, like, the guy averaged 39 home runs and 100 RBIs and a 587 slug every single season for his first, 7 years?
I want to believe in it. I mean, that was awesome last night. 11-10, both of those guys, the old school, if you will, and Trout going back and forth with Judge, 2 homers here, 2 homers there. But it's hard to believe, actually, the last few years, health notwithstanding, that career batting average, which was so high just a few short seasons ago, it's plummeted all the way, Tanner, down to 293. That's shocking.
Yep.
All right, let's get to some of these on the Air Comfort Service text line. Bet it or forget it, at least one player on the opening night second line is not on the current active roster.
So that would be
Carbonneau. No, not on the active roster. So second line of players
I thought
on.
they meant the second line at the start of this year.
No, yeah, second line next season. There's not a guy on the active roster that's playing on that wing. I'll say forget it because I don't think they're able to pull off a trade.
I would say forget it as well because they're not able to pull off a trade. And if they do carry Carbonneau, my guess would be he's probably starting on the third line. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think Carbonneau's a third line player.
Slowly build him into that top 6.
Unless
so
the guy just blows them out of the water in training camp, which, I mean, like, there's only 3 preseason games. So, like, you're not going to get a whole lot of opportunity to see the guy perform. So, I'd probably say forget it at that front. And I hope that there's a chance to pull an ability to grab those guys. Bet it or forget it, the Cardinals lose 90-plus games this season.
I'm going to say forget it. I think they'll be like 85 to 90. I don't know that they're 90 plus because I do think the offense is going to get a little better. It's the one thing I'm a little bit more confident in, and I'm still a little hopeful the pitching's going to improve slightly. I was looking at this last night. Teams that have this kind of ERA, which is like 5.15, and strike out fewer than 100 batters in the last decade. The only other team to do that was like the 2016 Brewers through the first 16 games, and they lost 89 games. Excuse me, I'm getting emotional.
You getting emotional, man? It's okay, man. If they lose 89 games, it's what has supposed to happen in a rebuild.
But that's why I say, like, it's hard to lose 90 plus. You almost have to have, like, either nobody above league average offensively or every pitcher you throw out there's just awful, and they're not that bad.
I'm forgetting it as well. Last season's team obviously finished 78 and 84. I don't think this collection is 6 games worse than that at minimum. So we'll forget it.
Final one here. Bet it or forget it. Jordan Walker is the lone representative for the Cardinals at the All-Star game. I'll bet it. And I would never would have bet that is the guy that I'd be saying represents. But, I mean, unless this dude has a complete drop-off, it's hard to not see how he's not. Yeah, I'm not saying he's starting. He's on the All-Star team, though.
Yeah, I think I would bet that right now as well. The only other guy that I would say has a shot would be O'Brien, for how good O'Brien's been in the early going, but there's so many good freaking relievers across the National League. How ironic is it
that the Cardinals bullpen is what has a representative in the All-Star game?
State of the franchise.
Oh, geez. Bradford Bruns, Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15, we'll dive into the junk drawer, but coming up next, Jim Montgomery seems hesitant to buy into the Blues' recent success. What's that mean for their offseason plans? We'll get into that next here on 101 ESPN.
Tee off with the morning after at the return of the Dotem Golf Tournament presented by Cutwater Canned Cocktails on Friday, May 15th at Oak Valley Course and Resort. Get your foursome together for a full day out on the course with TMA, including complimentary breakfast from Donut Drive-In, lunch from Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken, all your Cutwater Canned Cocktails, and Anheuser-Busch Beer and Seltzers. The 100 West Dental closest to the pin competition, the Evergreen Wealth Strategies longest drive competition, and an after party with food from Texas Roadhouse. Registration opens this Friday at 8 a.m. with a portion of proceeds benefiting Birdies for Bipolar. Find out all the Dotem info now at 101ESPN.com.
The Dotem Golf Tournament is brought to you by Cutwater Canned Cocktails. Real cocktails perfectly mixed for effortless entertaining.
Be a part of the show. Text the Air Comfort Service Heating, Cooling, and Insulation text line at 314-399-9646 on 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Blues bid farewell to Enterprise Center. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is presented by Universal Windows Direct. Jim Montgomery's squad wrapping up its season on Thursday, but tonight's tilt versus Pittsburgh ends the home schedule. Note Pens puck drop set for roughly 8:30 p.m. on 101 ESPN. St. Louis beat Minnesota 6-3 about 15 hours ago. Pavel Buchnevich scored his 200th career goal. Baseball, Cardinals right fielder Jordan Walker has gone yard in 3 straight games entering this evening's matchup against Cleveland. Said power surge attracting attention from MLB Network analyst Xavier Scruggs.
Even the better part, and how I know it should be something he can consistently repeat, is we're seeing him go center field, opposite field with the bombs, right? They're not just poolside homers. So for me, he even has more room to work with on the inner half of the plate.
That full conversation with Alex and Tanner now available at 101ESPN.com. Your Sports Center update was powered by Universal Windows Direct. You'll be saying, I love my windows.
We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Along with Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Blues back in action tonight against the Pittsburgh Penguins. I just did some math. 350 points that the Penguins have produced this season will not be in the lineup for them tonight, as once again it's a team that is basically got nothing to play for, so scratching a lot of their guys to prepare for the playoffs. I think there's this narrative that the Utah Mammoth aren't going to do that as well. Don't be so sure about that, because the Mammoth have to keep the Kings behind them. Both the Mammoth and the Kings have made the playoffs, but the Mammoth don't want the Kings to jump in front of them for the wild card. Now, here's the thing. If the Kings jump in front of them in the wild card, then they jump into the Pacific Division, and then the Pacific Division drops down to that wild card spot. So there's some in division or in standings battling, but if you're the Mammoth, you do not want to fall to the bottom wild card spot, which means you kind of need to win these last 4 games to take on the Pacific Division in the postseason. So I think the Mammoth are going to play guys. Now, maybe they sit a couple, but I don't think it's going to look like what the Minnesota Wild or the Pittsburgh Penguins lineup has looked like over these last couple of games. So yesterday, after morning skate, Jim Montgomery was asked from the media what he has learned about his team post-Olympics. And he said we've had a lot of really good performances from a lot of really good young players, but then he sidetracked into this comment. Take a listen.
I try not to get too excited about playing really well when you're so far out of it. There's so many teams. You look at the NFL. I remember one year, the Redskins were 0-8. They finished 8-8. Everyone's like, oh, this team's set to go to the Super Bowl. They were 4-12 the next year. You know, there's a lot of people that make a livelihood of being really good when your team's almost basically eliminated. We need to find more players that want to be really good right from the start of the year. And that's something that as an organization we have to instill, and something that we're going to try and make sure we do from the start of the year next year.
So I heard that, T-Bone, and I think you and I kind of had the same thought process when we heard the audio. Is he essentially saying we're not buying into what this team has done from February on? Now, there's a little bit of background with this, because like what he's saying in terms of being out of it or being so far out of it, you don't buy into it. That doesn't mean from the Olympic break and the Four Nations break on that he's not buying into what they've done, because they're still alive in both of those scenarios. Now, yes, you're far out of it, but there's a shot to get back in. You got to play motivated hockey, and then once you find it, you go back into it. But I do believe, T-Bone, that what he is saying is our team has not been checked in when the season begins, when we need them to have that aggressiveness with their game, until it seems as if it's unlikely. Like they have to have the motivation of nobody believes in us, we've been terrible, we'll prove them wrong, to go out there and perform. Last season, an 800-point percentage from the Four Nations break on, 19-4-2. This season, a 717-point percentage, 15-5-3. So quick math for you, that's 34-9-5 from February until the end of the regular season in the last 2 years. I think Jim Montgomery is speaking just as much as Alex Steen and Doug Armstrong would be speaking. This has been great. We love this. None of this matters because if you don't do it in October, then the season's pointless. And I know that seems a little critical to say, but they're not wrong. Look at what you have to do to get into the playoffs, and you're going to miss now, even with the second best point percentage in the National Hockey League. So, I think this is calling out the team, basically saying, like, look, this is great, guys. Do it in October and November. But I also think that this is them saying, like, we're not buying into what individual performances have done because you've been motivated in a scenario where you don't need to be as motivated. Like, I think Curbs mentioned this on pregame yesterday with me. That San Jose Sharks game that they played last week, where they came out flat and were down 3-2, I think, in the first period, the LA Kings game, those were like must-win, biggest pressure points of the season up against them. And they lost both of those games. That's the style that they're evaluating on, not against the Minnesota Wild and what they've done overall down the stretch.
Yeah, I found this comment so interesting because, like, I say this all the time. It's why I don't like post-game comments or the post-game pressers because half the time it is nothing but, like, a PR spin, essentially. Because not very often do you see a coach come out and say, yeah, he's just not been good lately, or, boy, we're not playing well as a team. Half the time there's always, like, no, yeah, we're doing things right. A lot in baseball it is it's just a little bad ball luck right there.
Well, the Cardinals had that narrative for how long of us being a second-half team?
Yeah. I'm still hearing Swanson still got his best stuff, my eye test doesn't say that and the ERA doesn't say it, but, like, when I heard this comment, it was, well, okay, he's not wrong. You're right. Like, he's saying what we all know. But like you said, they just have too many nights where it is they don't check in until it's too late. And a lot of years like that. That's why, like, it's tough to tell, and it's why I still think they're still potentially open-minded to potentially moving on from Robert Thomas this offseason. Yeah. Now, I don't think it's we're just going to trade this guy to trade this guy. It is if someone meets our asking price, which is going to be exorbitant, then they have that conversation. Same with Colton Parayko. I think Parayko's name's going to be floated out there in the trade rumor mill again this offseason. Because when you look at what the team is, you have to look at the sample size of this core from the last 4 seasons. And in those last 4 seasons, they haven't been a playoff team for 3 of the 4. In 2 of the last 3 years, they've knocked themselves out of the playoffs by January, right? I mean, we talked about this when they got eliminated. Yep. You can't make the playoffs, through the month of December, but you can certainly kick yourself out of the playoff race by the end of December.
Joey always says that by Thanksgiving, if you're a playoff team or not.
Yeah, and 2 of the last 3 years, honestly, 3 straight years, they weren't a playoff team at Thanksgiving until they went on a miraculous run last year. And I've said it before. Just think about it. They won, 11 in a row? 12 in a row?
Yeah, 12 in a row.
12 in a row. They won 11 in a row last year. It wasn't enough to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's how bad they were in the early
Calgary
going.
wins a couple games down the stretch, you're not in the playoffs.
Exactly. So, I saw this comment and I said, he's not wrong. And it's why I still personally would have Thomas on the trading block. It's why I would still be open-minded to making more big swings and more selling off points for this team in the offseason. This core, as you're shifting it, the current core, showed that it was mediocre at best, right? A fringe playoff team that has too many nights where they're passengers and not drivers.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest problem for them that they have to fix. And I don't know if they can really fix that going into October without making significant moves to where all of a sudden they're just going to snap their fingers and they're going to show up and start playing on time when the season drops the puck on opening night.
Yeah, I wouldn't trade Thomas. And my only thought process with this, and I understand what you're saying, T-Bone, and like, again, if they do, I mean, I'll be able to make reason of it because you kind of go back to the last 4 years.
And real quick to that point, when I say they are more passengers than they are drivers, and that's kind of what Monty was alluding to there for the beginning there, is he's referring to their best players, who Thomas belongs into that conversation
totally
with.
Agree.
Thomas, Kyrou, and Buchnevich. Those 3 guys weren't good enough in the first half.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I just really wonder if they look at Robert Thomas and say, like, okay, health part of it, now he's finally got these wingers, but also maybe there's just been lack of motivation, and the trade rumors was the fire underneath him to get him going. But maybe none of that matters because of what they're looking at. If anything, my bigger picture on this is what you want your head coach to say. I don't want we performed well and these young guys are really developing and we feel good about where we're at. Like, if he would have said that, I think I would have had more problems with it, because it's like, no, that was the same narrative we had last year. It's the same narrative you heard Drew Bannister say in the offseason about after the run that they made and missed the playoffs by a few points. They need that motivation once October and November begin, and that's why I do believe they're going to pick apart this roster. They've been picking apart this roster in terms of evaluating how certain guys fit in. That's why when you see certain players, like last night, for example, there was a play in the second period where the puck went into the corner and Jimmy Snuggerud immediately darted in and won that board battle. Theo Lindstein, the goal that he scored is one thing, but he broke up a play on the other side of the ice with his great defensive stick work and then jumped up into the rush. That's plays that they look at and they say, that guy is going to be a part of our team, rather than if you don't see the hustle or if you don't see the impact of going into the boards. And again, I don't think any of these games in the grand scheme of things matter in terms of evaluating those board battles and aggressiveness, because you're playing against AHL teams. I think the answers have already been stated. If you go back and watch that San Jose Sharks game, the LA Kings game, those are the games that I think the Blues brass looked at and they said, yep, we know who these guys are, and we'll see if we can make a change at some point with them. So 2 games left. Pittsburgh's got nobody playing. Utah will probably have people playing. So you'll get a good look at it. We all can't wait. Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15 minutes. It's just not going to come together for Nolan Gorman. Is it finally time to just write that one off? We'll get into that and the NL Central, but coming up next, we'll dive into the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN.
We want to hear from you. Use the Scott Lee Mic Drop feature on the 101 mobile app. Give us your opinion on anything St. Louis sports with a mic drop.
Brought to you by the Scott Lee Heating Company.
101 ESPN has your shot to score a signed puck autographed by Blues forward Jordan Kyrou.
Kyrou with speed.
Enter to win now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 app, powered by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. This is exactly where you want to be, listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Time to dive into the junk drawer. T-Bone, what do you got for us today?
Well, Alex and Bradford, as two married men, I have to ask you about how you would handle a situation like this when you are dating your significant other.
Okay.
You guys happen to go viral because you're at a Pacers game.
I'd love to go viral.
You were on camera, and it became this whole big thing when the guy was talking. The girl says, "What the F are you talking about?"
That's typically my
it goes
conversations.
viral. NBA countdown on ESPN decides we're going to have this viral Indiana Pacers couple on. And, well, let's take a listen as to one of the questions Shaq decided to send their way.
I'll tell you what, if you ask her to marry you right now, I'll buy the engagement ring.
Ooh. Listen.
No, ain't no listen, do it right now. Do it right now. Get on your knee right now. I'll buy the ring. I'll send you the
Look into the camera when you do that.
Oh, look at her face, man.
Did he do it?
No, he didn't do it.
What an idiot. Come on, man. If you're going to marry her, you propose the moment Shaq says that.
I felt uncomfortable. I can't imagine what that guy felt right there in the moment.
If they now, how long? Because I don't know.
I don't know how long they've been together.
I was gonna say I saw the viral video of
for
them.
a while.
Have they? Okay, then immediately, if I know I'm going to marry this girl, not only am I getting the engagement ring paid for, but it's being paid for by freaking Shaquille O'Neal. My wife even knows who Shaquille O'Neal is. So absolutely,
And
that guy's an idiot.
The moment that it happens, because everybody just heard the audio, and if you haven't seen the clip, her face, like her eyes shoot up like she's ready for that moment.
Yeah.
And you can tell the guy's like, I'm not there yet. I am not there yet for this commitment to my life. And I saw this and I was just like, oh, I feel so bad for him.
That relationship's over.
I was like, dude, this is so uncomfortable, right? I would not handle that well in such a public appearance on that show. And then you add in the fact that you've got Shaq that's really going to push for it, as you heard in that clip. Charles Barkley, who's going to push for it as well. Oh, I can't imagine. And I don't even have a girlfriend. You guys are married. I feel uncomfortable.
If they had been dating for 6 months, I would totally understand it being like, nope, not doing that. It's too weird. Not yet. If they're together for 2+ years and you know that's the next step in your relationship, that's the perfect scenario to ask for an engagement. And maybe he, because I did this, I dreamed up this big prolific proposal and engagement, but it's not like I got the ring to give to her. Like, I'm going to propose to her right now because Shaq's buying the ring. And then when I get the ring from Shaq, I'll make it a big-time deal. And guess what? TNT's a part of this now. So they're going to follow you through the engagement to your wedding. Oh, yeah. This guy missed a huge opportunity. That relationship won't be together in the next month or so.
It was the ultimate opportunity to shoot that shot, right?
Would you guys have done it right then and there on the spot?
Hell yes. If that's my stipulation to get the ring.
Oh, man.
Do you understand how much engagement rings are?
I know, but just in that moment, that just feels
just wait, buddy.
And plus, I would shoot my shot and be like, Shaq, I want you to officiate it.
That would have been a good call.
I mean, I got this on a string right now,
man. You can get that online, right? You can become a person that can officiate a wedding online.
God.
Actually, yes.
I think you can, right?
I've done it.
Have you? Okay. All right. Yeah.
Literally. Speaking of which, last season, you didn't forget, right? I thought that we nearly made it viral. That is on the Jumbotron and Enterprise Center. You guys remember first game coming out of the Olympic break, right?
Yeah, Bradford lip-locked with his wife.
Well, that's one way of putting it.
I mean, he went to town. He went to town, and I'm like, Bradford, my goodness.
Somebody went for it. Somebody.
Yeah. Good for you, Bradford.
Yeah, Bradford
I think Bradford then would have definitely taken
Bradford
Shaq's
dove
ring
right
offer.
in. Yeah, that guy's a dummy, plain and simple. Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up in 15 minutes, what are the Blues missing that Cup contenders have. I know, cue your sarcastic, everything. We'll talk about that. And tonight, the last time we're going to see Jordan Binnington as a Blue, so we'll talk about that. Derrick Goold's joining us at 1:30. But coming up next, is it time to write off Nolan Gorman? We'll discuss next year on 101 ESPN.
Jamie Rivers here, and it is time for another one of my jersey giveaways. And right now, you can register to score a signed Jordan Binnington Blues jersey. Yes, beautiful Jordan Binnington Blues jersey. Gotta love it. Enter to win that autographed Binner jersey at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app. Jamie's jersey giveaway is presented by St. Luke's, ranked top 2% in the nation for cardiac surgery by Health Grades. Visit stlukes-stl.com. That's stlukes-stl.com.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends out at Classic Air Care. The month of April means summer is coming, which means you need to get that tune-up for your HVAC system. And right now they're offering over at Classic Air Care a tune-up for $79. And the importance of that tune-up right now is critical when it comes to older units. If you have them, making sure that all the pipes are in good shape, making sure the wires are in good shape. And honestly, they'll come out and they'll check your furnace filter and make sure that's in a good spot, because you've probably forgotten, like most people do, that filter needs to be changed pretty regularly. Classic Air Care has been around since 1926, making people comfortable. I've been using them since 2016, and it comes down to their incredible technicians that work over at Classic Air Care and the customer service that they provide. You've got people that are going to get back to you within 24 hours. They get priority scheduling to try and get you on the schedule as quick as they possibly can, and with 100 vans, they typically get you on the schedule pretty quick. So give them a call today. Schedule online. Check out their maintenance agreement. There's financing options if you're looking to purchase a new HVAC system. It's Classic Air Care and ClassicAirCare.com.
WXOS, WXOS HD1 East St. Louis. 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return. They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
So, other than Jordan Walker, nobody really on this team hitting right now. And Jordan Walker is doing what he's supposed to do in a pivotal point of his career. We talked a lot about it in the offseason of this is like the most pressure he's facing and kind of the turning point if you're going to be an everyday major leaguer or not, and he is capitalizing on it. Along with Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. The guy that's not capitalizing on it is Nolan Gorman. Nolan Gorman is kind of in the same spot as Jordan Walker. You're waiting for things to kind of take off for him, although he has shown it in spurts at times in his career, maybe more so than Jordan Walker has. He has just never lived up to that consistency potential that a lot of Cardinals fans thought he would. He's hitting .208. He's got an on-base percentage of .298, which never was going to be the selling point of Nolan Gorman, but he's .333 slug with a .632 OPS. Started off the season pretty decent with 2 home runs in his first 4 games, and since then, he has a total of 6 hits, and 3 of those came in 1 game.
Ouch.
Is it time to do what we were talking about doing with Jordan Walker this offseason? Is it time to set sail with Nolan Gorman in the hopes of him becoming that bat that the Cardinals need?
Yeah, we're slowly getting there. You know, I'm not willing to give up on him through 16 games, but it just doesn't look like it's going to translate for him again, right? It doesn't look like he's going to get back to what he was in 2023 when he was 16% above league average, which, to your point, you can live with him not having a high batting average, and you can live with his on-base being low if he's slugging. In 2023, he slugged .478. He's at .333, as you had mentioned, and it's the 2 home runs. He just doesn't look like he's got the same power that he had from a couple years ago. And I don't know if that's from when the Cardinals tried to adjust his swing.
That's what I'm worried about.
Where he hit for average last year when they tried that, or if it is, he just can't generate the same power because maybe his back just was the problem for him in years past. Maybe it's gotten to a point where he can't generate that power, right? We've seen how injuries can change the trajectory of a career for a baseball player. And I don't know if you'd call it alarming part, but the part that really sucks for the Cardinals is if he doesn't get back on track and become the guy that they thought he was going to be, they don't have a real, true left-handed slugger in their system coming, right? Chase Davis isn't that guy. There's nobody that I can think of down at the lower minor league levels. And if there's someone I'm forgetting about, then feel free to text them into the Air Comfort Service text line. Gorman was kind of the true power hitter from the left side that they were trying to develop. You know, Burley's got pop, but he's more of a 20 home run, more of a contact hitter, right? More hit tool than power. Mm-hmm. Gorman was true power from the left side that could put up a 3-run bomb when he got on or when he stepped to the plate with runners on base. So, yeah, it's kind of concerning what we've seen so far. And the reason I won't jump to too much of a conclusion is maybe there's the chance that this just happens to be one of those cold months that we see from Gorman. We talked about this a little bit yesterday where he goes through a month where he can't hit a beach ball. He also then, in years past, would go through a month where he hits everything and he can carry you and hit 7 home runs in a month's time, kind of doing what Walker's doing. But the problem for him the last couple of years is when he gets hot, there's no power in that hot stretch. And that's where I'm curious to see what it looks like. You know what? Maybe this is just going to be a 30-game sample where he just doesn't hit and it's one of those cold spells again. You can live with that as long as the next 30 games when he starts hitting, he's doing damage to the baseball.
It has to happen at some point. And I think a while ago, all of us really arrived at the realization that Nolan Gorman, okay, for all intents and purposes, moving forward, if he is a complete feast or famine guy in this lineup, that's fine. An extremely poor man's version of Kyle Schwarber. But Tanner, we had talked about it yesterday. If the thump isn't there, then what fundamentally is the point? Now, I am interested to see the crossroads that's going to come about here after the next week or so. So following tonight's game, you're going up against a left-hander, obviously, in game number 2 against Cleveland. And then thereafter, 8 of the next 9 currently scheduled on tap, opposing starting pitchers going up against the Cardinals are going to be throwing from the right side. So you know he's going to get that runway, pardon the term, for the better part of the next 10 or so games. And then you have that crush of games between the 24th and May 17th. If you don't see anything resembling that power over the next 10 or so games. It's not as if Arias is banging down the door with that grand 233 average, but at least you know at minimum you're getting elite level defense at third base. This is a critical stretch for Nolan Gorman, in my opinion, in the 2026 season. And then by extension, it's critical to figure out where he's going to be branching off of that the rest of the way.
Yeah, I think he's a lock in your lineup all year. I don't think there's a stretch where he's not playing. I mean, they're going to platoon him a little bit against lefties, it looks like. I think that's kind of part of their plan. But I think he's going to be getting most starts at third base and DH every day. Even if he's hitting like what he is now, and instead of having this conversation on April 14th, we're talking about this on July 14th, he's still in the lineup. There's nobody else that really can, in my opinion, take over and becomes a solidified franchise third baseman for you. So you continue to play him and see if he can get back to it. And then the hope would be either he becomes the player you thought he was, and you can pencil him in your lineup for the future, or he becomes that player for a year and you say, all right, it's time to cash in our chips and see if we can trade him.
Yeah, I mean, you brought this one up too in the office. If Nolan Gorman's not it, where's your left-handed bat coming from?
Probably externally at some point.
That would probably be the number one guy that you're searching for in terms of the three-headed monster we always talk about in the middle of your order. Let's say Walker continues this, Weatherholt becomes that piece. You're looking for that left-handed big bat that's a three-hole hitter or something. It's a tough spot to be in. I also you're in a rebuild now, so I'm kind of with you, T-Bone. It's like just keep chugging them back out there. But at some point, it may not work for Nolan Gorman, and you just turn into you just become a splits bat that we can use in certain scenarios and see who the next third baseman that you can attempt there. I'm not saying it's Ramon Urias, but is there somebody out there that you could bring in to be a rebound candidate to just like, hey, get a shot to take your career back, kind of like what Patrick Wisdom was for that 1 year with the Cubs, to where it's like, just go take a shot on him, see what happens. If Nolan Gorman is just not slugging, he's not making contact for you, at some point, whether it's this offseason or next offseason in the midst of your rebuild, I just go out there and try and find a guy to give him a shot to rejuvenate his career rather than keep throwing the same guy out there.
And it's really just that slug. I mean, you mentioned it there. If he hits like 220, gets on base at like a 310 clip, but then slugs like 480, that's what they want, right? They're not. This is why I found it weird what they tried last year, which was, well, we think he can get back to be more of a contact hitter. Okay, he did during stretches, but then when he would get hot, he wasn't hitting for power. And I think that's what you kind of have to live with Gorman is, this guy's not going to hit for a lot of average. He's going to strike out a lot. The thing we need is when he makes contact, it goes far like when Jordan Walker makes contact right now, right? Yeah. So that's the biggest thing for him. I see a lot of people bringing up Blaze Jordan. He's not a lefty, but I just don't know where they're at on Blaze Jordan. I don't think they view him as any kind of piece that you try at third base. I think they just continue to run Nolan Gorman out there because he has played 5 games at third, has Blaze, but I think he's viewed more as a first baseman than he is a third baseman.
So I saw this audio from Dontrell Willis on MLB Network over this past weekend, and he was talking about what it's going to take to win the NL Central. And he basically said, like, look, there's nobody that's going to run away with this. You're probably talking about something between 83 and 85 wins to get into the NL Central, win it / be a playoff team from it. Do you buy into that as well, T-Bone? Because we talked about this last week in terms of just the NL Central. Like, I think it's a strong division. I don't think it's going to have any top-heavy teams. I think it's just going to be a lot of average teams that are going to be battling it out with each other, like the Pirates and the Cubs and the Brewers and the Reds. Cardinals, I'm kind of starting to wonder if they fall back down to being the worst team in this NL Central, but I kind of agree with them to where I think like 85 to 87 wins is probably going to be enough to win in the NL Central.
Yeah, I still think it's going to take 90 wins to win the NL Central. 88 to 90, but I lean more towards the 90 side. I just think we're going to, like, it feels all condensed right now. Like, you look across baseball, and everybody's kind of in it right now. Mm-hmm. There's very much a bunch of parity outside, like in the NL West, where the Dodgers are unbelievable so far this year, and that will probably sustain. I think you're going to see after the first month of the season, where I say all the time weird-ish happens, I think you're going to see the Brewers, Cubs, and the Pirates separate from the NL Central. And I think one of those 3 teams is going to be able to win 90 games. Now, they're probably not built right now to be a 90-win club, It then comes down to the trade deadline. Do those teams go out and make a move or add a piece that can help them get there? But I don't think this is going to be like the AL Central from a couple years ago where like you back your way into the playoffs with 83 wins or 84 wins. I still think this division is going to require around 88 to 90 wins to win the NL Central.
I felt this way before the start of the season. I feel this way now, a couple of weeks in. I still look at Milwaukee as the prohibitive favorite in this division. And the biggest thing working against the Brewers right now would be the health or lack thereof. You think about Yelich landing on the IL, the fact that Jackson Chourio is still waiting to make his season debut. And then even from a pitching standpoint, you still feel as if there is more to be gleaned from this staff. I understand that Peralta left for New York, but you would imagine that as the season progresses, as you see more and more work from the likes of a Brandon Woodruff, this team is going to get stronger to me. We've already witnessed a bit of a fall off from Cincinnati. Yeah, Hunter Green, you think, you hope at some point is going to be back. But I'm looking at Milwaukee, frankly, and then everybody else, because I do think at full health or anything resembling that, to me, there's a pretty big divide between Milwaukee, and yet year after year over the past few seasons, we've consistently discounted really or disregarded what this team has done because you haven't seen anything in the playoffs, right? But you've consistently been atop this division. I don't see any reason why that changes in 26.
It's Bradford Bruns, Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15, we'll talk things over with Derrick Goold, our Cardinals insider and the Cardinals beat writer for the Post-Dispatch. But coming up next, what are the Blues missing that some of these Cup contenders have? We'll go into kind of some of the numbers that good old boy Dom put together next year on 101 ESPN.
This is Dylan Holloway, and today is Blues Game Day on 101 ESPN.
Blues Game Day on 101 ESPN is presented by Buffalo Wild Wings, the ultimate arena for wings and wins. Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
So every year, once you get close to the postseason, the Athletic, Dom, put together a checklist of Cup contenders and kind of where they stack up with their depth. And more times than not, we always go through this and we look at it and we're like,
nope, Blues don't have that.
Blues don't have any of that. And once again, I pulled this piece up on The Athletic today and I looked at it and was like, yeah, you don't have what Colorado has. You don't have what Dallas have, nor do you have what Vegas, Edmonton. And a lot of this comes down to the franchise-altering talent, like Kaprizov, McDavid, McKinnon, Jack Eichel. Although I could make an argument that Robert Thomas has some Jack Eichel in him, I think Robert Thomas needs to be a 30-goal scorer to get to where Jack Eichel's at. But I want to go scroll down this list a little bit more, T-Bone, because I think a lot of people are excited about the Utah Mammoth, right? Like the Mammoth seem like that next big thing that's going to be so tough to go up against. So I scroll to their list, and I look at some of these pieces that Dom puts together of having them on the Cup contender, and I'm like, man, the Blues aren't far away from having what these guys have. Let me explain. They have Clayton Keller as their franchise forward. He's not wrong. Like, Clayton Keller is a franchise-altering forward, but Clayton Keller is not a centerman. And in my opinion, the teams that win Stanley Cups have elite centermen. Like McKinnon, McDavid, Jack Eichel. You got to be able to lock down the opponent, whether it's offense or defensive side of things. And he labels the shutdown forward as Nick Schmaltz. I could argue that Robert Thomas is the franchise forward for the Blues and probably be right in line where Clayton Keller's at in terms of his numbers. The franchise defensemen, they have Mikhail Sergachev. Philip Broberg, in my opinion, is close to, if not a better defenseman than what Sergachev is right now. Their shutdown forward is Nick Schmaltz. You can go Dylan Holloway in that front, whatever you really want to go with. And their goalie is Vejmelka, Joel Hofer, probably similar. Really, it's the star forward. That's what you're missing. They've got Dylan Guenther as the star forward on that team. And then if you go into the support core, they've got Logan Cooley, who's a stud of a player. They've got shutdown defenseman and Nate Schmidt, scoring defenseman and Sean Dursey, support forward and J.J. Peterka. You can nitpick all of those. You hone in on the star forward of Dylan Guenther and say, to me, that's what's missing. If Jimmy Snuggerud can be, and Dylan Guenther, by the way, just scored 40 goals for the Utah Mammoth. I think it was last night or 2 nights ago. If I look at that elite core for the Utah Mammoth, and I say Robert Thomas can be Clayton Keller, Broberg can be Sergachev, if I can have Dylan Holloway and Jimmy Snuggerud be Guenther and Schmaltz for what the Utah Mammoth have, to me, you're in the same lockstep as them. It's just a matter of what's that depth, that secondary scoring, and the secondary options do for you.
Sure, you're in lockstep with Utah. Utah's not a cup contender in my mind.
Not yet.
But I think like if we're going off of that, now that's fair. Not yet. In a couple of years, we might be singing a different conversation. When I'm looking at this list, I'm going, okay, what do you have like to Colorado? What do you have to Minnesota? What do you have to Dallas?
And the answer is nobody in the West can compete with that.
Exactly.
You just can't.
But like that's what you have to try and build towards to be a cup contender. You know, I like Utah is more of the fringe playoff team. Like I look at what the Blues have, I don't think they've got the franchise forward. You know, like you look at what Colorado has, it's McKinnon. You look at what Tampa Bay has, it's Kucherov. You don't have that guy.
But you know what's funny about it? When the Blues play Colorado, for some reason,
it's because they've got the star goalie.
Yeah, but I mean, like I even look at Robert Thomas. Robert Thomas can shut down the McKinnon line. And sometimes you have the shutdown player. If he's not elite on the offensive side, if he's elite on the defensive side, it benefits your team. But the only way that works is if you've got the secondary scoring. Like if I look at Colorado on this list, Nazem Kadri, Devon Toews, Sam Malinsky, Arturi Lehkonen, Valerie Nichushkin, Gabriel Landeskog, who's 33 years old, Josh Manson. Like, I listed off those guys, and again, some of them name recognition. You look at Landeskog and be like, well, you don't have that. Landeskog is not now what he was 4 or 5 years ago. Like, the support core and the depth core, it's not as elite as you would think. What's elite is the top players, and if you've got elite ability to shut down those top players, well, then your depth has to outperform. But you're right in the sense of, it's why I don't think, and what JR told us earlier, you don't push your chips in now this offseason to be aggressive to try and get there. You're still about 3 years away from either Colorado and Dallas and Minnesota taking a step backwards or you in the development process getting more and more pieces?
Yeah, because like I think when you look at this list, I think they're short both at the top and in the middle. And what I mean by that is like the depth that you're talking about. Because you're right. If you have a Robert Thomas that can shut down, and we'll just use Colorado as the placeholder here, if that can shut down the McKinnon line, you definitely walk out of that going, all right, that's a win, right? If we can keep McKinnon off the scoreboard, in theory, it gives us a better chance until you look at what the Blues' depth of forward is, right? And that's where there's such the big difference for where the Blues are now. Now, I still think they're missing that top-end player along with Robert Thomas if you're going to have a franchise guy. But, yeah, they're far away, and that's why, like, when I say they should push their chips in, I'm not saying, like, they trade all 3 first-round picks, they trade away prospects, but they start to really upgrade in that middle there. Like, you go out and you acquire someone like Beniers that can be that second-line center that can really upgrade some of that depth. You know, you maybe go out and you look for an upgrade at the forward spot rather than saying, let's hope that a rookie in Carbonneau can become that. If you're planning on wanting to be a playoff team next year, that's probably what you're going to have to do. So that's why I bring that up, because I agree they shouldn't be like in full push mode where they're trading away as many assets as possible and trying to just get rid of some of the prospects in the farm and then trying to get rid of their first-round picks because they feel they're a cup contender. No, but I think you can't just say we're going to run this thing back and our big upgrade is by subtraction, by trading Jordan Kyrou and we bring in Justin Carbonneau, because then I actually think for the time being you actually take a step back on this list as to where you're at, especially in your depth, rather than trying to make some steps forward and try and make some progress.
Yeah, Starvin Marvin said Utah's about to add 2 top prospects into their team as well. I mean, yes, and the Blues don't have the same equivalent, but the Blues are adding decent prospects to their core in terms of Jiricek and Carbonneau. See, I think the difference between playoff and cup contender are 2 very different things. I look at the list that Dom had for Anaheim. I look at it that they did for the Kings, for the Predators, and the Mammoth. I think the Blues are in that category. It's just a matter of, do you find that secondary scoring? Because I think they have that star forward, and you just have to wait a little bit in terms of development, in terms of could Snuggerud take the Dylan Guenther step next year? Could Dylan Holloway take the Guenther step next year? Could you add a couple of those complementary pieces? You're not wrong, though, Tanner. Like, to get to that top echelon, you have to make an aggressive move. Like Minnesota made their aggressive move to get Quinn Hughes. They saw Matt Boldy develop, and they say, cool, we've got him. We got to get the defenseman. And then a lot of these teams, I mean, for what people have seen with Joel Hofer, you start to be very confident in what you have in that front, which can be the difference for a lot of these teams. Because I look around at a lot of these lists, Joel Hofer, in my opinion, is better than about 6 or 7 of these teams for what Dom put together.
I would agree with that. And like when you look at like the elite core section that Dom puts in here in this piece, like star forward, I think you've got, as you said with Thomas, you know, the one that I would argue that they just don't have is the franchise forward. Outside of that, like star forward, franchise defenseman, shutdown forward, star goalie.
If I told you Robert Thomas got 100 points next year and Dylan Holloway or Jimmy Snuggerud scored 35 to 40 goals next year, would you feel different?
About a franchise forward.
Would you feel Robert Thomas is a franchise forward and one of those guys is the star?
I would. I'm skeptical he gets there, though. Right? Like
I'm with you.
Every time we have this conversation on Thomas, it's we hope. And tell me it's deja vu. I've been here in the industry since 2020, and I've had that conversation for 5 years now since I've been here. Yeah. Well, if Thomas does this, well, if Thomas does that, all right, well, everybody said that about Nick Suzuki in Montreal, and guess what? Suzuki actually did it. You know, I haven't seen Thomas do it.
You're right.
Yes, I would feel differently if he does do that, but call me skeptical. He hasn't done it yet.
And you're right. Like living on ifs and hopes and dreams, like it doesn't matter until you put it into
if and hope. What is it, Brentford?
If it's or
butts were candy and nuts,
then we'd all have a Merry Christmas.
Boom.
Yeah,
there you go.
Okay,
there we go.
I was looking for.
Teamwork.
Thank you, everyone.
Again, like I'm trying to be like the Robert Thomas defender, and I agree with everything that you're saying. You can't live in a dream world that all of a sudden he just becomes a 100-point player. My argument would be he hasn't had this elite wingers around him. And I know people will say, well, Jordan Kyrou was. I don't think Kyrou had the same skill set that Holloway and Snuggerud do and why it matches Robert Thomas.
I get that. This is where I have a tough time on Thomas because I get that argument to an extent because I agree. Like Holloway looks like he's going to be a difference maker. Snuggerud's shot looks like it could play to being a difference maker. But didn't he have decent wingers over the last couple of years? I get it. Maybe it wasn't at the extent that we're talking about with Holloway and Snuggerud, but we act as if he had like Josh Levo on his line like O'Reilly did when he was last year.
Yeah, that was
and he
really
did
bad.
It. He had Boots playing at a pretty high level.
Robert, see, you're right.
And Kyrou, by the way, who had a couple years ago was a 30-plus goal
37
scorer.
goals. Yeah, no, you're totally right. I've always said this about Kyrou, though, because everyone would try and argue with me saying, like, well, Kyrou should be playing with Robert Thomas. Robert Thomas is a playmaker. Robert Thomas creates for other guys. Robert Thomas should never be viewed as a goal scorer. He also, when they put Pavel Buchnevich and Jordan Kyrou with him, those are also playmakers. All three of those guys are always looking to distribute. Jimmy Snuggerud and Dylan Holloway are a shot-first player. Like, when the puck is on their stick, they're putting it on net. I mean, Jimmy Snuggerud has become that piece for you, and Dylan Holloway's just a puck hound. I think those guys match. You have to find guys that can think on the same level as your best centerman. And if Robert Thomas is looking to create, you need guys that can capitalize on the creation. And I think because they can, it's where it opens up another element to Robert Thomas's game, to where these guys now, goaltenders and defensemen, are planning for them to shoot, which leaves Robert Thomas wide open for those opportunities to capitalize. It would be my argument for why it works.
And the one thing that I would say, and I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but if you're just a playmaker, and follow along because I think this might get confusing here. If you're just a playmaker like Thomas, which is a pass-first guy, right, and not a goal scorer on top of being a playmaker, like I would argue like McKinnon is, McDavid is. He's a playmaker, but also that guy can score goals when he needs to and just say, get on my back, boys. I'm going to get us where we need to go. I don't know if you can become the franchise player that an organization needs to go out and win a cup or be a true contender. And my thing with the Blues is I think they're doing what the Cardinals have done in years past, which is we have Robert Thomas, who is a very good hockey player, but we need him to be the franchise guy when he's not going to be the goal scorer that can get to that 100-point threshold.
Yeah, well, and I think that's what Jim Montgomery was basically saying. Like, we need guys to show up in October and November. Somebody texted in and said a franchise forward, specifically a centerman, is a guy who is a point-per-game player. I mean, Robert Thomas, over his last 3 seasons, he hasn't been able to play 82 games, which is very important. Ability or availability is the best ability, but he averages, if he were to play 82 games, 86 points. He's a point-per-game player. It's just, to get to that next step, you got to be the 90 to 100-point player, and the Blues have been searching for that for a while. I know we got to get to Derrick Goold just real quick on this. Jordan Binnington's going to get the start tonight because it's a back-to-back. It's probably going to be, I shouldn't say probably, it's likely to be his last game as a St. Louis Blue. I don't know what the offseason holds. I don't know if they can pull off a trade with this one, but this is going to be the other uncharted waters for the Blues. If you move on from Binnington, we can all be hyped about Joel Hofer in the regular season. Sometimes it doesn't matter unless your guy can make the big save in the postseason, and you're going to have to wait to find that out. That's the question that's going to have to wait to be answered by the Blues once they get to that point.
Yeah, we'll see if this is his final game as a Blue, which, again, as we talked about, kind of weird.
I hope it's not, by the way.
Into the Cup era. My guess, if you had to, like, today, Tanner, make a guess. What is? I think he's back next year.
I do too.
I think they end up keeping him, and I think it's twofold. One, they want a veteran, experienced goalkeeper to be the backup with Joel Hofer because they like to basically have 1A, 1B. And two, I'm not sure that he has much trade value. He's a rental contract if anybody trades for him. And as we see, teams don't value goaltenders across the league, and they're really not going to value him when he's been statistically, based on the advanced metrics, one of the worst goalies in the league. So I would say today, I think he's actually going to be back. I don't think this will be his last game as a St. Louis Blue.
He's Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Derrick Goold, our Cardinals insider, joins us next on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777.
Stupiracy, it's the podcast where stupidity and conspiracy collide. And in our latest episode, me and Tim investigate one of history's strangest outbreaks, a moment when hundreds of people danced uncontrollably for weeks, collapsed from exhaustion, and in some cases died. All without music. Stupiracy Season 2 is out now, including our latest episode examining the bizarre events of the dancing plague of 1518. Listen wherever you get your podcasts or watch on YouTube. Presented by CarStar, your auto body repair experts, locally owned with a nationwide guarantee. Visit carstar.com.
Now listen to 101 ESPN On Demand. Get caught up on all our shows and podcasts at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. 101 ESPN podcasts are presented by the Schaefer Door Company. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Crosby-less pins end STL's home schedule. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is presented by Universal Windows Direct. Tonight at approximately 8:30 p.m., the Blues square off against Pittsburgh minus Sidney Crosby in this season's Enterprise Center farewell. Dan Muse's Penguins draw a first-round matchup with Philadelphia, while St. Louis saw its playoff hopes dashed last weekend. Baseball action also awaits downtown. Cardinals-Guardians Game 2. Right-hander Michael McGreevy faces Joey Cantello. Here, Cleveland's lefty will encounter MLB's home run leader, Jordan Walker, smashing his 8th dinger yesterday. Hoops-wise, Mizzou adds forward Jalen Carey, who just helped Tennessee reach another Elite 8 mere minutes ago. Dennis Gates landing former Providence wing Jameer Jones as well. Your Sports Center update was powered by Universal Windows Direct. You'll be saying, I love my windows.
We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario as we head right to our Collier and Thompson hotline to welcome in our Cardinals insider here on 101 ESPN. He is the Cardinals beat writer for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. You could follow him over on X at @DGould. We love our weekly catch-ups with Derrick Goold. Derrick, how are you today, sir?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We are doing fantastic. I would assume headed down to the ballpark for Cardinals and Guardians, and was picking up reading the Post-Dispatch article earlier today to where it's kind of the biggest topic for us here on the show, Derrick. As much as people are looking at the pitching side of the struggles for the Cardinals, boy, the offense has gone silent with the exception of Jordan Walker.
Yeah, really. I mean, he scored 5 of their 10 runs on this homestand, and, it goes even deeper back than that. They got 7 consecutive. So, the Mets series, the Boston series, and now the start of this Guardians series where the offense is scoring 3 or fewer runs. I mean, look, the bullpen and the rotation has had its difficulties for sure, and there's been leads lost and, short outings from the starters that leave leads vulnerable. And comebacks have been a big part of how they've won. But you want to solve some of the issues, take off some of the strain of the bullpen. You can often look to the offense and what it's doing. And I think this is a bigger question for the Cardinals because it's one that when you looked at the team both going into spring, through spring, and coming out of spring, offense is a glaring question. And how are they going to score runs is going to be one that follows them all year.
Derrick, do you think that the offense has a better chance of kind of quote-unquote getting back on track more so than the pitching? Because with the offense right now, they're doing this while Herrera is not hitting and while Weatherholt is still trying to learn at the major league level.
That is a great question, and I hope that I can give it a direct answer. You ready? All right, go ahead. Ask it again.
All right. Is it a chance that the offense gets back, bounces back more so than we see from the pitching because Herrera's not hitting and Weatherholt's a rookie?
No.
Boom.
Was that direct enough?
That was direct. That's all we needed.
Okay. All right. I would bet on the pitching coming around more than the offense being a strength of this team. I think what folks have seen from the pitching, should give them concern, but some of that is April. Some of that is a pitcher like Matt Swanson finding out that the league has adjusted to him and he will adjust. I mean, he's got a very good pitch. He also has other pitches that can be sharper, a mix of pitches that can be different to really heighten and restore the effectiveness of his sinker. There are things that the pitchers can do, and it can turn around as quickly as you saw it for Dustin May. Liberatore yesterday, he pitched a fine game, right, except for a couple of walks that really got him. But look at the difference between his game and, Gavin Williams' game. Gavin Williams didn't have the huge strikeout number that he's had in the previous 3 starts. The Cardinals had more hits from their first 3 batters, than he had allowed in any of his previous 3 starts. He never allowed more than 2 in any of them so far. But the difference was that Liberatore walked a couple guys, and then there was a ground ball past 2 diving infielders that drove in 2 runs. The Cardinals didn't have the big hit like that. And while you look at the pitching, you go, okay, they have the ingredients to turn around, and they're looking for the personnel. And, yeah, they need that 6th inning, 7th inning kind of bridge or chase guy. But where is the offense going to come from? They need so many things to go right offensively. I describe it as like stacking probabilities, right? If you go, oh, well, this guy's a 300 hitter, right? And he's on or a 300. Yeah, he gets a hit 30% of the time, but it's a single, and you need 3 singles to get a run. Then you need the next guy who maybe might be a 250 hitter, and the next guy who might be a 210 hitter. All of a sudden, you start stacking those probabilities, and it gets less and less likely that you get 3 hits in a row. The Cardinals, outside of Jordan Walker, haven't really brought the thunder. And there's a real question as to how much thunder they'll have this season in that lineup. They need Gorman to provide it. They need Burleson to provide it. They need Herrera to provide it. But they have to have something happen there. They've had lightning strike with Walker, but they have to have something more, or else they're going to be, what I've described in the past as kind of a radio dial offense. They're going to be station to station. And when you stack probabilities, that makes it very difficult to have rallies. And that's why I would suggest that, like, the pitching, because of the ingredients there, because of the track record there, it's more likely to turn around than the offense, which is likely to spend most of the season as this stacking of probabilities.
We're talking with our Cardinals insider, Derrick Goold, Cardinals beat writer for the Post-Dispatch here on 101 ESPN. Derrick, you mentioned Nolan Gorman, and we spent all offseason talking about the pressure of Jordan Walker and how this was a pivotal point of his major league career. We didn't really put Nolan Gorman as much into that conversation. Do you feel like he was supposed to be, and where's that pressure meter at right now for Gorman?
I mean, the Cardinals were putting him in that conversation. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's fair. Walker got a lot of the attention just because, they're both first-round picks. Walker was the number 1 prospect, right, or number 1 hitting prospect, so maybe a little bit more focus on him. But the Cardinals were putting him in that conversation. Chaim Bloom would talk about Walker and Gorman sort of in the same breath, often in the same sentence, when he would talk about guys who are entering a rather big defining season for them. I think Gorman is a question, like, that's part of sort of the 30,000-foot view of this season, right, is the Cardinals have talked about how they want to continue to go through this year, and when it's end, have an idea who's going to be in the core of their next contender, right? Well, the answer might be not that guy, right? It could be one of these guys shows that they're not going to be part of it. That is an answer. It's not one the team wants. It's not one the player wants. It may not be one the fans want, but that's still an answer that it's like, well, no, he's not going to be in that core. And I think Walker and Gorman are both in that spot. They're both, Gorman's already in arbitration. Walker's approaching it. They've had lengths of time, multiple seasons in the majors to show what they can do and adjust. And if, this year it just doesn't come together, then there's going to be a push for it to be, someone else who takes that spot. So I think it is a very important year for Gorman.
Derrick, I did want to ask you about the pitching, and I don't know if I am making a bigger deal out of this or not, but does it feel like the Cardinals are potentially trending towards a little bit of a pitching crisis? And what I mean by that is the rotation hasn't been going deep for most of the guys through the first 3 turns through the rotation. The bullpen has been shaky is the best way to describe it. They're losing depth in starting pitching with Richard Fitz down in the minor leagues as he just got hurt, and they're having a tough time keeping their left-handed guys healthy and on their rosters because they're losing them to injury or losing them to waivers when they just DFA'd Schuster. Is this all kind of compiling towards potentially whether it be an innings deficit or a pitching crisis for the Cardinals and a team that I think felt they were better with their pitching depth coming into the year?
I appreciate the question. Great. As someone who has been accused of being Chicken Little, crying out for an innings deficit, I seem to recall a member of the front office telling me that back in 2023. Chicken Little was right. Well, nailed it. But they had an innings deficit, and you could see it on the horizon. I don't think it's enough. I think it's a great question to always keep in mind. I actually think this team, while on the precipice, is not as in danger as maybe you would first suggest. I think they have improved their pitching depth. I think Hunter Dobbins is a real part of that. The Fitz injury hurts. The Hunter Dobbins rise helps. Cade Wincast coming back from the Yankees could not come at a better time. He'll likely go back into that spot that's now open with Fitz. I think the lefty depth is very interesting. The answer of what they do for the lefty, I mean, they got Zimmerman, but if they go, well, Bryson Motts could be a reliever, then their lefty depth looks different. But that's the kind of decision that like a team that wants to contend and is a little more urgent would make, whereas they'd be like, well, we like the upside of Motts, so maybe don't make that call right away. So I think they're in a better spot, but it's worth keeping an eye on.
Derrick, final one I wanted to ask you about before we let you go here on BK and Ferrario. Speaking of the pitching side of things, they're at the bottom of Major League Baseball in terms of strikeouts so far this year. Do you believe there's more swing and miss in the tank for the pitchers that are on the staff now, or is the swing and miss just coming from the minor leagues?
Ooh, that's a great question too, man. You guys, wow, this has been a really good talk.
We were on it today.
Important things.
Man, we're batting 1,000 so far.
I was going to say, hell yeah, Derrick.
You guys are. This is really good.
Next week, we're going to be terrible.
Man, baseball's hard. You can't just count on it coming every week. I'm going to make adjustments next week. You're going to have to make adjustments. Wow. There's more strikeouts to be had from the current staff, right? Dustin May will provide them. He'll pitch better. He pitched better against the Red Sox. There'll be more strikeouts there. There'll be more strikeouts from the starting staff, like a Liberatore. He'll be a part of that and Leahy, because they'll throw more innings. So those will start adding up. Swanson will get his strikeouts. Brule has been a really interesting kind of pitcher. I probably haven't given his strikeouts. I know I haven't given his, as I was reminded yesterday, I haven't given his strikeouts enough credit. And so that's a fair point. I mean, he's had very intriguing amount of strikeouts and swing and misses. So that's part of his game. I think there's more there. It doesn't have to come entirely from the minors, because where's it going to come from the minors? This is still a pitch to contact overall pitching staff. Michael McGreevy today, that's his game. He obviously is looking for more velocity, but even with more velocity, he's going to get a lot of ground balls. When he's at his best, he's going to get a lot of meat contact, and those balls are going to go right to somebody. When he has a difficult day, he might have some of those balls go right by somebody. This is still going to be a team that makes decisions defensively because of the style of pitchers that they have overall. But I do think there's more swing and miss in this staff yet to go, just because the starters will get more innings, and some of them will just pitch better than they have, and that better will manifest in strikeouts. That's how it has to manifest.
Derrick, we always love these conversations, man. Appreciate you hopping on as you do weekly. Enjoy the game tonight, and we'll talk next week.
Sounds great, guys. Excellent work. Thank you very much for a good conversation.
There you go. Derrick Goold, Cardinals beat writer for the Post-Dispatch. You hear him here weekly on BK and Ferrario, and you can follow his work over on X at @DGould. We'll kind of recap what Derrick was talking about, and we'll wrap things up with our rewind next here on 101 ESPN.
Nelson, Steven Wilson, and more. August 18th at Hollywood Casino Amphitheater. Get all the ticket details and enter to score tickets for this year's Outlaw Music Festival right now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 app. Powered by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Hey, join TMA for the return of the Dotem Golf Tournament on Friday, May 15th. Oak Valley Golf Course and Resort, presented by Cutwater Canned Cocktails. Get your foursome together to join Tim, Martin, Doug, and Jackson for a day on the course, including breakfast from Donut Drive-In, lunch from Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken, after party with food from Texas Roadhouse, all your Cutwater Canned Cocktails, and Anheuser-Busch beer and seltzer, 100 West Dental closest to the pin competition, the Evergreen Wealth Strategies longest drive competition, and so much more. Registration opens this Friday morning at 8 a.m. with a portion of the proceeds benefiting Birdies for Bipolar. Find all the Dotem info now at 101ESPN.com. If you missed anything from the show today, we had a great conversation with Jeremy Rutherford on the Blues, Derrick Goold on the Cardinals. You can check it out over on our podcast page, 101ESPN.com, which is presented by Schaefer Door Company. Also the 101 ESPN app, which is presented by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Just a quick wrap things up here, Tanner. Cardinals lose last night 9-3. Walker hits the home run. That's about the only positive that came from that game.
Yeah, pretty much. They had opportunities to bring in a couple runs, and Walker missed a big opportunity with the bases loaded early. But look, I mean, we knew the offense was going to be a struggle this year. I think the pitching still is a little bit more surprising that it's been this struggling like this. But, you know, we'll see. We'll see if Derek's right, that maybe they start to add a little bit more swing and miss as the innings start to compile. I'm a little skeptical. I'm also a little worried that there is somewhat of a pitching crisis starting to boil up. And the reason I bring that up is I don't think Quinn Matthews and Bryson Mott are guys that they want ready to go right now. They've got 6 starters, which is fine with Dobbins when he comes back. Someone else goes down, suddenly they're in the spot they were last year, and you don't want to be calling up Matthews and Motts too early when they're not ready for the big leagues.
Yeah, and the offensive struggles are real as well. They play the Guardians tonight, 6:45 first pitch. Michael McGreevy on the mound. Blues win last night 6-3, expected against that AHL team.
Well, at least they go against Crosby and Malkin tonight, right?
No Crosby, no Malkin, no Carlson, no Letang. So another AHL team.
Penguins need me out there or something?
Maybe. You want to play net? Stuart Skinner. You could be better than Stuart Skinner, right?
Yeah, I probably could.
No, shut up. Apparently, I'm wrong on Stuart Skinner all the time. We got puck drop tonight at 8:30. Pregame starts at 7:30 here on 101 ESPN. The Fast Lane's coming up next. They got Chris Pronger at 2:15 for Bradford and Tanner. I'm Alex. We'll be back tomorrow from 11 to 2. Fast Lane next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN has your shot to score a 4-pack of tickets to the next St. Louis Battlehawks home games at the Dome at America's Center. You could win a free 4-pack to see the Battlehawks take on the Columbus Aviators Friday, May 8th, or the Houston Gamblers Saturday, May 16th. Get all the ticket info for the next 2 Battlehawks home games and find your chance to win tickets right now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app.